BR, nothing but rants, show where I find topics that I'm rather passionate about and I pontificate upon them. These are not hot takes, but rather takes that I am hot about.
Nothing but rants.
Hot takes.
3-point stance, we advance. Ball in my hands, I don't take no chance. Touchdown dance, that's my jam. No hot takes, this is nothing but rants. Nothing but rants. Nothing but rants. Nothing but rants. You know Brooks finna cook, let him rain. Try to do it like us, but you can't. Stay the young, going dumb with the chance. Big plays lead to even bigger bands. What's up? What's the word? What's the play? What we talking about? On the scene with the team, yeah, we popping out. NBR, let's get it, let's go. Film guy, get on ready for the show. What it is, what it ain't, what's happening? We gon' hit you with the stats and the facts, man. NBR, let's get it, let's go. Film guy, get on ready for the show. 3-point stance, we advance. Ball in my hands, I don't take no chance. Touchdown dance, that's my jam. No hot takes, this is nothing but rants. Nothing but rants. Nothing but rants. Nothing but rants. Hey, shout it end zone dancing. We about to start it up, this the anthem. That right, big rings got me handsome. Hold them up like we came for the ransom. I'm in the field, 2-minute drill. Highlight reel, let's review, what's the deal, okay? Watching footage going out of control. Buckle up, we got an hour to go, so let's go, that's straight heat. Ain't no chillin' around here. Back that back, Nat Chance, how we feelin' around here? Got my whole squad in the building around here. If my name ain't on it, then I really don't care. Come on. 3-point stance, we advance. Ball in my hands, I don't take no chance. Touchdown dance, that's my jam. No hot takes, this is nothing but rants. Nothing but rants. Nothing but rants. Nothing but rants. The beat on the beat, hey. Yeah.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to MBR, or as we like to call it around here, Nothing But Rants, the show where I find topics that I'm oddly passionate about and I pontificate upon them. These are not hot takes, but rather takes that I'm hot about. What's up? You really like that?
Let's shut up and grind some tape.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome in to the Film Guy Network on a fabulous Monday evening. First time, long time back with the boys. It's going to be a good one. We got a loaded one for you. We got our semifinals recap. We're going to talk a little bit about peaking tonight. Interested to talk about that with you guys tonight. Marcus Freeman and some other college football coaches linked to NFL jobs potentially. Where do these two teams, Notre Dame and Ohio State, where do they rank with regards to the rest of the national title winners in the college football playoff era? We'll talk about that tonight. A team receiving vindication from one Christian Kirby tonight. Excited to talk about that. Who's going to be the Arizona State of 2025? Arizona State kind of came out of nowhere to win the Big 12 and make a college football playoff run. We'll take a stab at naming who the next program to come out of nowhere might be. But boys, it's been since mid-September. I think mid-September since all three of us have been here together in Mom's studio at 8 o'clock ready to rip a live stream. So basically a month.
September? You mean December?
Mid-December. My bad.
Okay.
Wow. One of those days.
That would have been a problem if it had been gone the whole football season.
Mid-September, we're really slacking.
Yeah, mid-December. So basically a month since, and that's how rusty we are. I was thinking it was September. Mid-December since we've all been together ready to rip a stream.
Yeah.
It's nice. Good feeling to be back.
It is a good feeling.
Yeah, how was Europe, by the way? You took a little pond hopping venture around Europe, I guess, for 17 days?
Yeah, a lot. Saw a lot, did a lot. It was a long trip, but it was a really good trip. It was a good time.
What'd you learn about Europe? Did you learn anything? Is there anything worth seeing over there, or is it just moot point? How about them dogs, college football?
I mean, certainly the thing about Europe that I tell everybody is the best thing that you see over there, no matter where you go, is you're going to see things that you just could not possibly see in America. And you and I kind of talked about it earlier of, well, it's because a lot of places they were established a lot earlier than America.
Yeah.
So the history, like castles that were built in the 1400s, that's like the coolest thing to me I could possibly see.
You might mess around and see a castle or a teepee around here that's been standing around since 1400. But not a lot of castles, not a lot of actual structures that's still hanging around since the 1400s over on these parts of the world.
Yeah. So
Pangea and whatnot, all separation, all that good stuff. Welcome in. We got a loaded show for you guys tonight. Super excited to be back and active with you guys on the channel. Make sure you're hitting that thumbs up button, firing off in the chat as well. I want to give a quick shout out to our friends over at BetUS. I believe that's in this corner.
Always on your left.
A good shout out to our friends over at BetUS. If you have not checked out BetUS this season, you need to head over there right now. Use promo code YouTube150. I don't know about you guys, but every once in a while, I get an urge. I get an urge to put it on black. All right, and you know, being in the state of Georgia, you can't just find a roulette table anywhere near you. All right, you just can't. But nowadays you can, because BetUS does indeed have a live casino over there. Again, head over to BetUS, use promo code YouTube150. You'll get 150% deposit match up to $2,000 and 125% deposit match on your next 2 deposits over there on BetUS. Again, that promo code YouTube150. Make sure you're hitting that thumbs up button, boys. While we were gone, all right, we did a watch party for the Orange Bowl. We'll start with our reactions and recap from that, and then we'll move over to the Cotton Bowl. Actually, I got a good rundown. I took some good notes today. I want to start these off. My Orange Bowl recap for you. Obviously, Notre Dame wins it 27-24 on a last-second field goal. I'm going to start with Penn State, okay? This reminded me of basically every SEC title game that isn't like heavily overmatched. And what I mean by that is like 2 teams that are very evenly matched in terms of talent and how good they are ultimately. When they get into football games like this, they are very much so who makes the last mistake football games. If you make the last mistake, you normally lose this football game. And this is how evenly talented these guys were, guys. 12.75 was the overall talent composite ranking of Notre Dame. 13.2 was the average overall, ranking prospect recruiting profile of Penn State. They were dead even in terms of talent discrepancy. And the last 2 mistakes were made by Penn State. They busted a coverage on the defensive side of the football, fell down in a man-to-man situation, and they run for a touchdown late in that with 4 minutes left in that football game. And then obviously the Drew Aller interception, which we have on the film study broken down for you guys. It was exceptionally played by Notre Dame. There's no doubt about it, but it's a crucial mistake that you ultimately can't make in that portion of the football game. And if you're a Penn State fan who have found our channel since we started doing film studies, you probably watched the last 2 days of film on this network. If you're a real, like, I'm going to eat my vegetables type of fan, if you're one of these fans that just, hey, the season's over, I'm done with it, you probably didn't watch that film study considering how extensive it was. But if you did watch it over the last 2 days and the 3 hours that we did, you probably left thinking a couple things. But first and foremost, your offensive line dominated, or you feel as if your offensive line dominated. If you just watched the film, you feel that 44 took over that football game. You feel that number 10 took over that football game, and you feel that number 13 took over that game. And you walked away with a loss. And the reason being, most notably, because your quarterback played like a golden retriever on speed. I can't explain it better than that. That's the way he played on Saturday, or on that, whatever day that was. I get mixed up on these days. That's what he played like in that Orange Bowl. He played like a frantic, way too excited, almost like a first-time starter, despite the fact that he's played like 20 games at this point in his career. He was floating constantly in pockets, and I think the best way I can describe the way that he played the quarterback position in that football game was Drew Aller tried to make every single throw the most difficult throw possible. If we had wide open receivers, there's a rep in that film study where I believe it's Katron Allen or maybe Nick Singleton. Either way, OC's got him dialed up, running butt naked down the sideline for what would be a 90-yard touchdown, or at least a 60-yard explosive, or the backside safety ran him all the way down and made an open field tackle. But it is there, and Drew Aller ends up throwing it like I don't even know how to explain. He's like completely tilted at like a 20-degree angle just because it made no sense. And here's the deal. If Penn State's going to get better than that, if they're going to do better than a semifinal matchup in which they luckily drew Boise State and luckily drew SMU, if they're going to do better than that, of course they got to get better at wide receiver. Of course they got to have more dependable weaponry outside of a freak that is Tyler Warren, who's no longer on the roster after this year. But the quarterback has got to get better in the refined areas of quarterback play, because that was not good.
Yeah, watching the film back, it almost it kind of reminded me or reinstilled the thought that watching that game, it felt like Penn State should have been the team that should have won. And Notre Dame fans might kind of balk at that idea of, I don't know about that, because you did make more plays than them, the meaningful plays at least.
Meaningful.
But Penn State's defense was continually making plays throughout the entire game. They were making big-time plays, and they were making life very hard for Notre Dame's offense. You forced multiple turnovers. That feels like a recipe that should put you in a big-time or put you in a position to win that football game. And they even it felt like more explosive plays on offense. They were getting chunk plays. Tyler Warren was making big plays, but ultimately it was the small moments, the small pockets of big-time moments in this game where Notre Dame out-executed Penn State, and that's ultimately what won them that football game. So it kind of was a weird game overall for me, but Notre Dame just kind of continuing to do what they've done this year.
And what they've done this year, and we'll get to you. I want to circle back to you on the Penn State thoughts, but I think it's a good transition into what Notre Dame's great at. And what they did in this game to win was be dominant in the middle eight. Now, every coach talks about the middle eight moments of the football game, right, which are the last 4 minutes of the first half and the first 4 minutes of the second half, can really dictate basically how the game is going to go. In the last two football games against Georgia and Penn State, Notre Dame has outscored opponents 21-0 in the middle 8 minutes of these football games, and they've walked away because of it. They've walked away with wins because of it, right? They went 17-0 in the middle 10. The last 2 minutes of the first half with a backup quarterback, they drove down, kicked a field goal, get the ball back to start the second half, walk it down 14 plays, score a touchdown, force a 3-and-out, go 3-and-out on their own, force another 3-out, walk it down and score. In the middle 10 minutes of this football game, they outscored Penn State 17-0, and that's what walked away with the win. Go ahead and wrap up or go back to the Penn State thoughts that you had. My bad.
Yeah, I don't want to sit here and try to defend the way Drew Allar played, because I don't think it was great. But I mean, you look at the stat sheet and it's not there, obviously, but Penn State should have won this game. They could have very well overcame, a subpar Drew Allar performance, which we thought very well could have happened. And you look back, and the thing that always sticks out to me in this is they did the exact thing that we said you couldn't do all game, and that's make the mistakes that cost you points. First drive of the game, they have a touchdown that's dropped. Walk-in touchdown is dropped. And then obviously the cornerback falling down on man coverage. That's an 11-point swing in a game you lost by 3. So, yeah, Drew Allar didn't play great, and you obviously are going to need better quarterback play moving forward since you don't have, the Tyler Warrens to elevate this roster. But I don't think that's the main reason why they lost. I think at the bottom line is that Penn State did what you said they couldn't do all week, because Notre Dame is a team that will execute. And to the credit of Notre Dame, they did make their mistakes in this game as well. I think Ryder Lions had 2 picks. They were over-pursuing gaps, things like that. They seemed misaligned in some areas. It was not a very clean game from Notre Dame. But in the areas that they needed to be, it was.
It's a great point. It's the dirtiest game I've seen Notre Dame play in the last month.
Yeah.
They like you said, they overran outside zone a good bit in the first half. Just bad general run fits that created creases for Penn State, something that we haven't seen, like I said, over the last month of studying Notre Dame on tape. They've been gap sound every single down outside of this football game. They didn't play very clean, especially to start in the first half. They made adjustments in the second half. We saw that on tape. Bad turnovers from the quarterback. You mentioned it. The first interception's him forcing a football, something he's not going to be able to do against Ohio State. The second interception was just, again, once you see Denai Dennis Sutton dropping back and not playing the flat, we need to check the ball down. But we feel like we need to be aggressive sometimes, and we need to press the issue sometimes, and that leads to issues, and it did in this football game. We already talked about the misfits, but they just weren't perfect. They had busted assignments. They had guys where we're letting Tyler Warren run butt naked down the middle of the field because I think he's got him, he thinks I got him. That shouldn't happen at Notre Dame, and if it happens this coming up football game, they will get beat. I was impressed that they managed to get out of this football game with a win, knowing good and damn well this is probably the dirtiest that they will play.
Yeah, and I also want to kind of steer in there, and I don't think it's one that we're going to entertain, but James Franklin had this team prepared.
Yes, he did. Oh my God, they opened so well.
Yeah. And then the way they used Tyler Warren pre-snap, moving him in the quarterback so it messes up all of Notre Dame's counts, like they had a very good plan for this Notre Dame team. Now, I know the statistics are what they are. I think he's 1-15 against top 5 or top 10 teams. It's not great. But I don't think this was a loss because James Franklin can't win the big game. Now, that's the narrative you can write, but
I would ask a Penn State fan when, the record is versus top 5 opponents, right? When has Penn State, since James Franklin has been there, ever had a top 5 roster? He's always got a top 10 roster, always. I don't think he's ever been inside the top 5. When we look at Penn State, we're like, yeah, they're better than Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, even Michigan, Oregon. Like, we don't ever feel that way about their roster. I don't ever feel those expectations should be placed on him. I thought he over-exceeded any expectations people had of Penn State, except for Christian Kirby, who had him going to a semifinal.
Yeah, I think that's like the only one I got right out of all the playoff predictions we had to start the year. That's the only one that hit.
Like, the odds of you doing that, the odds of you being able to say, hey, not only is Penn State going to make the playoffs, they're going to get a freaking easy-ass walkthrough, like the easiest of all of them. So, yeah, the choking metrics I get, like, and people want to crack on James Franklin. And I think the main thing is if James Franklin were just the head coach at Penn State that didn't talk like James Franklin does in front of microphones, I think people would be a little bit nicer to James Franklin.
Oh, actually, no. I had 3 out of the 4 semifinals right.
Look at the kid.
Texas, Ohio State, Penn State, and Georgia.
Look at the kid.
I do think it's kind of crazy to think back of Penn State could have won this game, and they did it in a manner where not a single wide receiver had a reception.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I don't even know how that plays out. I know Tyler Warren obviously is a big factor in that. It's a big reason. You got 2 really talented running backs. They're coming back next year as well. But I mean, not a single receiver being active in like the offensive output of this game, and you still almost walked away with a win. I mean, it's hard to complain too much.
Do you know how well? Yeah, obviously you do, but I don't think it can be overstated how well coached you have to be to beat 2 playoff teams 21-0 in the middle 8 minutes over 2 football games. That means you're extremely good, not only in 2-minute drill offensively, but defensively as well. They created points with pass rush against Georgia in a 2-minute drill. It means you're great at special teams. Obviously, you can flip fields, you can kick field goals accurately. Mitch Jeter's been a great addition for them, finally now getting not only healthy, but starting to hit field goals consistently. But also, you're obviously great at adjustments. It means you go into the half and you change things. You come out hot in the second half, offensively and defensively. Dominant coaching performances over the last 2 football games from Notre Dame.
It certainly is, and I think some of it is circumstantial, and some of it's a little bit luck. Like, let's be real. A kickoff return, there's coaching aspects, but that's also luck. That's a lane opens up, and that's you break a tackle. That's luck. You know, a fumble right before the game ends, or a receiver falling down, things like that. It's luck. So I mean, Marcus Freeman absolutely gets all the credit for that, but I don't think it's like he's some mastermind genius. That's really the reason they're dominating. They've gotten very good opportunities from.
What if I told you we had a Notre Dame fan hop in the comments today with a stat that said they're like 131-40 in the middle 8 this year?
I believe it. It makes sense. I mean, that's great. I just think this specific stretch is more attributed to, hey, you guys have gotten a lot of really good breaks, and you've taken advantage of them to your credit, but it's not like they've had just, oh, my God, they're out-coaching everyone right now.
We got a super chat from my man Ken C42, says certified NASCAR knower. Just a real opportunity to say thank you to Ken, acknowledge the jacket. Wait till you see the back of this thing. Acknowledge the jacket and tell the chat that any super chat, or as we call them around here, super chub, north of $20, get your name on the board, and we'll roll that over there eventually. You'll see that. It's been all over the film studies. People keep asking why. The number one questions we've got as of late, what's up with the names? What's up with the Buffalo? Those who know. We also have a new shirt up on the merchandise site. Not that we're giving all the plugs out. Patreon.com/Brooks Austin. Not that we're giving all the plugs out, but make sure you're hitting that thumbs up button and subscribing as well. Notre Dame going to have to play a whole hell of a lot more clean this week.
Yeah,
whole hell of a lot more clean to beat to beat Ohio State in the national title game. Should we move on to the Cotton Bowl? Any further thoughts on that Notre Dame Penn State football game?
No, I think it's
great that Penn State, like you said, has got some of the key players coming back next year. It's all dependent upon the growth at the quarterback position, in my opinion. And if he becomes one of those like really well-trained, disciplined, that's what I think it is. I think it's down-to-down discipline to do the things that you're mechanically taught to do. That's all it is. Let's move on. Cotton Bowl. Ohio State wins this one 28-14. This is going to sound crazy, especially to Ohio State fans that are watching this, but hang on with me. I left legitimately more impressed with Texas's defense than I had, even more respect for them leaving than I even had coming in, and I thought they were the nation's best defense coming in. To hold that offensive unit from Ohio State to 21 points and force a turnover, they played outstanding in that football game. Problem is, they had the best unit in the sport. They held the best unit in the sport to 21 points. While the second best defensive unit in the sport, Ohio State, held their offense to 14 and scored a touchdown. Like, that was the difference in this football game. But I felt like the performance that Texas's defense put out in that football game was tremendous, and it will get overlooked by the fact that their offense was extremely stagnant. As they have been at every single football game this year. They have had moments of stagnation on the offensive side of the football in every game, even the ones that they won by 20, 25, 30 points. They had moments where they were stalling out. It came back to bite them. I want to talk about what most people are talking about with this football game, which is all of the social media clamoring for Steve Sarkisian to get cooked on the truck toss at the end of the football game. I love Peter Burns. Peter Burns is a friend of the show. Peter Burns has openly admitted on SiriusXM to stealing my takes, so I'm going to cook one of his. Going out on social media and saying that that is the worst play call of all time, I get. We understand that we're getting a takeoff at that moment. Here's what I will say to those people, to everyone that wants to question the play calling and all that, not question the execution of the play call, but actually question the play call. Let's talk about a couple things. Let's go back and look at what Penn State, the success rate Penn State had inside the one, trying to bully ball and run at Ohio State. If you don't remember, the game basically ended on the goal line for Penn State, trying to gain the lead. They run it 3 times with their big physical offensive line unit, get stonewalled 3 times in a row, try to go play action on 4th down. Caleb Down breaks it up. Game over. They lose. All right, they tried to be tough 3 times in a row against the nation's best red zone run defense and couldn't do it. So Penn State failed. Texas definitely knew that because it's in the red zone cutups. So first, go back and watch that one. I don't know if we can sit here and go hindsight, oh, we just needed to run Arch Manning 4 times and we're getting in. Are you? Because Penn State tried to do something similar and didn't do that. So that's first and foremost. Secondly, look at the first down play on tape. They tried. They tried running at those dudes with big defensive linemen and big tight ends and big offensive linemen. Ran right behind their starting left tackle, who's a first-round draft pick. They got stonewalled. So what they do, they go to a pitch, right? I understand the process to do so. Also, if you really want to dig deep, go back and look at every single inside the 5 red zone possession for Texas since Sark's taken over. All right, one of them sticks out like a sore thumb in my mind. It's the Red River rivalry a couple years ago. They get inside the 5, I think up 4, all right, and try to ice the football game, get stonewalled by Oklahoma, just trying to be tough guy running at them. Guess what you don't do at Texas? You don't run north and south. That's not what you do. You're a stretch zone football team. You're an end-around football team. You're a wide zone football team. You run east and west and then cut north and south. That's what you've always done. So just because the execution in that moment was not great, I don't like that for you. I hate that for you. I hate it for Texas that Caleb Downs is the best run support defensive safety we've seen probably since Ed Reed. I hate that for you. I hate that he took an absurd angle and an absurd route to make that play bubble and string that thing out for a -7. I hate that for you. I also hate for Texas that your right tackle the next play got folded like a cheap WWE table. I hate that for you. But I don't necessarily hate the play call. I also hate the idea that we're going to go out and cook him afterwards, despite the fact that the only reason you were even in the red zone to potentially win the football game is because your coordinator was out here dialing the shit up to even get you into that position. Every cookie cutter play in that game for Texas, every base install football play for Texas in that football game, in my opinion, was a net inefficient play. It didn't do well. They had to dial up shit just to get explosives. Every tight end leak that he just manufactured went for an explosive, got them into that position late in that football game. I think it's so easy to look at the last play call and go, damn, we really pissed down our leg.
I think too, like in the goal line situations, a lot of those moments really boil down to which singular player is about to make a play. And I think that it can result in play calls getting overly criticized. Like when it works, it's the greatest thing ever. If it doesn't, then it's the worst play call ever. Like it's so simple to say, like, when you get down there, oh, we'll just throw it up to our big-time wide receiver. If they catch it, it's great. If they don't, it's like, well, that's a wasted play. Why are we doing that? But I think the biggest thing for me on that play was Caleb Downs. Like, it's just an absurd play by him, and sometimes that happens. That happens in football. Sometimes someone just makes a great individual effort, and it shuts down a play, or it ends up as a touchdown.
The very next play, Jack Sawyer had an incredible individual effort.
Yeah.
Incredible individual effort.
Judging play calls based on how they are resulted is one of the most casual things you can do in any sport or any single, because the reality is if that goes for a touchdown,
You read the super chat.
if that goes for a touchdown, no one's talking about how bad of a coordinator Sark is. No one's saying that's the worst play call ever. No one's saying we threw away the game. No one does it when something goes well. There's millions and millions and millions of examples of this where the worst play call ever could have been a stroke of genius if it works.
I went full-on philosophizer on this on social media. Here's how I describe it. Play calls are judged on outcomes despite the fact that the outcomes are judged on execution.
Absolutely. 1,000%. And sometimes opposing players make great plays.
Yep.
Sometimes Malcolm Butler jumps a slant and you are now labeled the worst call in Super Bowl history. Stuff like that happens. So I'm not going to sit here and say that Sark lost in that game because of bad play calling. I think the reality of that you have to look at is that Texas's defense underperformed Texas's offense underperformed the entire season this year.
We have our first name going on the board tonight, unless Travis Rice is already on the board. I love this. I don't love this for you, but I think this is hilarious. Having to watch the Film God Network in secret tonight after my kid, in front of my wife, said that a ball was, quote, pissed on while watching the Ohio State game Saturday. Travis, I don't care if your name's on the board already. It's going back up on it. My God, son. I apologize to your son. Let's frozen rope. That ball's ripped. Maybe avoid the pissed on until we start shaving. Amen, boys?
Yeah, I'd like to know the actual age.
Yeah, the actual age. If we got an 8-year-old out here, I apologize. That's on me. All right, I'm going to completely apologize for that one. I don't believe I see Travis Rice's name already on the board. So let's go. Let's go ahead and add it up here. My man, Travis Rice. And underneath, I'm going to put pissed on. All right. Shout out to him. We'll keep a running tab of everybody else. I think we missed somebody at the end of the watch-along show that we did, Kirby. So if that gets reminded to us in the chat again, maybe it was Mundangerous. If we get reminded about that again in the chat, please let me know.
I thought we already wrote Mundangerous up there.
Maybe we did.
We did.
We did? All right, so we're good there. Thoughts on the Cotton Bowl? Sorry, we got distracted.
I mean, Ohio State has certainly just really turned it on. As soon as the playoffs came in, there were so many questions coming into the playoff of they lost to Michigan. Everybody cooked them. I mean, I certainly did of like, if that's how this is going to go, like I didn't trust Will Howard coming into the playoff. I didn't think that they were going to be able to execute enough on offense. Defensively, I thought that they were good, but maybe not great. And it seems like all the narratives around Ohio State have been completely steered in a completely different direction. And all it took really was 1.5 games, like the first half of Oregon, and that was it. And now they've essentially become a completely different football team.
It's the hardest defense, I would imagine, from a coverage perspective to prepare for. Because, you don't know what they're going to play from a jump. Like, you don't know what style of defense they're going to try to, what style of zone coverage they're going to try to use against you. Is it going to be 2, 3, 6, 9? You have no idea what type of coverage they're going to throw at you, even when you go to scout them and prepare for them. That's first and foremost. Secondly, the hardest thing about them, you don't even know what they're playing pre-snap. Like, they're out there just kind of amoeba D'ing, all right, just moving around. And then right as the snap, everybody knows where to go and how to go. Everyone made a lot of talk about all the transfer additions that they've added, and all of them are making impactful moments or impactful plays on this roster. They're all very, very important. But the continuity that they've maintained on their roster via NIL, right? Paying these guys to not leave for the NFL, the veteran presence not only on the front of their defensive line between 33, 44, and 91's a football player that doesn't get talked about enough from that defensive line. The continuity there, but really in the back end. Having all of those guys stick around and play for an additional year, and you add into the mix a football savant that we've talked about plenty on this network with regards to Caleb Downs. they're really, really hard to throw on right now because of how they play zone coverage. It's going to be really fun to watch. I've already gotten through the first half of that study. We'll give it to you tomorrow here on the network. If you just like good football, you need to watch that. There's a lot to learn about how they're trading off concepts, how they're anticipating concepts, how they're lining up, how they're disguising things pre-snap. Yes, they have great talent. But when I think of guys that have a shitload of talent, Kirby, I always think you're just going to play two-man. You're just going to line up and cover everybody because you can. They're lining up and playing a lot of zone coverage that is just being traded off and passed off at such a high level. It's ridiculous right now.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that can be so appealing of not just playing two-man is that you can really, really put opposing quarterbacks in a really big tizzy, simply because they don't know what they're seeing anymore. And I think that's kind of what you saw a lot with Texas and Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers did not seem like he was fully seeing everything because it's hard to read, one. And two, I think he's just had issues doing that all year. It seemed like he was really settling for a lot of things.
I should have noted this going in. It's a bad matchup because you're turning your back to the defense half the time you're throwing the football. Like, you're not even seeing what they're moving into until you turn your head back around. So you can imagine, I snap the football, I see one thing, I see cover two, I turn my head around, I give the ball to the running back, I turn back to look at the defense, and now they're rotating into cover three, and what I thought was going to be an easy deep over now has Caleb Downs sitting on it. Now, of course I'm patting the football. Of course I'm not managing pockets well. That's on him, though. I thought that was an obvious thing that we all confirmed, and we thought we knew about Quinn, but I think the national audience confirmed, oh, this guy doesn't necessarily know how to manage pockets correctly. He panics. And the number one sign I see from quarterbacks panicking, everybody looks at the eyes towards the line of scrimmage. That's the eyes down at the rush is a bad thing. But the number one thing I see when I know a quarterback's panicked and not comfortable with people around him is when his feet go parallel to the line of scrimmage, because you're trying to look for ways out instead of looking down the field, being ready to throw with pressure in your face. Anytime my feet get parallel, we're cooked. The play's over with.
I mean, all that's to say it's very similar to the Orange Bowl in that Texas had an opportunity to win this game. Like, their defense put up an incredible performance, with the exception of that last play of the second quarter that kind of ended up being one of the things that doomed you. Like, you're driving in to win the game. And obviously the Jack Sawyer fumble happens, but like the two mistakes that they had, the fumble and the Travion Henderson pass at the end of the first half, like those two plays were a 14-point difference in a game you lost by 14 points. So it's so interesting how we always say football is a game of inches, and one or two plays can swing the entire game. But I think if you go back and you take those two plays back for Texas, this could have been a different outcome.
I think that Ohio State is the best kill shot football team in college football right now. It's happened multiple times this season. It was the Caleb Downs pass breakup against Penn State earlier in the year, but then it was also Will Howard forcing a first down when you absolutely needed it to ice the game. I think you saw it early on in the Oregon game. It was an early on kill shot where Jeremiah Smith is just absolutely gashing them, and he's being the best player in college football on that day. Then there was two of them. You already mentioned one against Texas where it's a screen pass right before half where Texas finally got some momentum, and then they take all the wind out of their gusts right before halftime, and then it's also the Jack Sawyer strip sack, take it to the house. I mean, the kill shots that they have delivered this season, it's the best that I've seen.
What did we think about the 75-yard screen pass? Because a lot of Texas fans are upset about the play call.
About their play call?
I guess they pressured.
Oh.
I haven't gone back and seen it just yet.
That's another one of those moments, though, where
I saw three guys have an opportunity for an open field tackle. That's what I saw.
Yes. But in those situations, too, and like this, it kind of goes with like goal line play call conversations of anytime there's a moment where someone's like obviously trying to maybe push the ball down the field, it's, well, why are we only rushing three? We're not getting to the quarterback. But then when you do it and then it bites you in the butt, like then it's always going to be criticized if it doesn't work out in your favor.
Again, it goes down to player execution. I know you can question the coaches all you want. The reason they do that is because go watch the Washington-Chicago game this year. If you're not bringing pressure on deep throws where they're going to try to push the ball down the field, stuff like that can happen. But the reality is, like, you had two or three guys in position to make a tackle. You tackle them down, the half's over, there's no touchdown. So you can be mad at calling the kind of coverage you have where you have three deep or you're running quote-unquote prevent, but as long as your players make the tackle, no one's mad at you.
We obviously have a week to do previews. It was very clear what Texas was going to do to Ohio State. They were going to play too high. They were going to play soft zone coverage all day long. They were going to make Ohio State, either throw into tight zone coverage windows underneath or be willing to run the football inefficiently because their front six players are insane. The question, and going into the national title, is, and I think we're going to find a little bit of an answer going back and watching Notre Dame versus Ohio State last year as to what Notre Dame wants to do with Marvin Harrison on the field. And apparently they played a bunch of man coverage in that one, but I don't see a lot of teams trying to play man coverage against Ohio State right now. And I think Notre Dame might be the first one to do it, or at least try to do it.
They're going to try for sure. I mean, that's kind of been the MO of Notre Dame, of like, if you're going to beat us with your athletes, you're going to beat us. Now, obviously, that you have to make certain plans for a player as talented as Jeremiah Smith. And we did see them mix up some zones. I think they opened up the game in zone against Penn State. So they're willing to throw different things at you, but they're going to be a primarily man coverage football team. So I would expect them to do the same against Ohio State. I don't think Marcus Freeman's the type of guy who's going to throw his entire scheme out the window simply because of who you're playing.
It will be interesting because the matchups that Notre Dame has had in the playoff, playing man coverage against those three teams of Indiana, Georgia, a team that's struggled.
I think there's two NFL weapons amongst all of them. What's his name? The ex-receiver from Indiana I like, and then Tyler Warren.
Yeah. Those are the only two you really face in.
And they got 2 first-rounders.
Yeah, they got 2 really, really good ones. So, at wide receiver, not even at tight end. So your 2 star corners are really going to be tested.
Too.
Yeah, I mean,
that tight end's not bad either.
So it's going to be a different type of test for them in this national championship game.
All right, what does the Natty matchup prove to you, Christian Kirby?
It proves to me that the regular season and the relevancy of it and the kind of the do-or-die mentality that you've had to have.
The perfection,
not even perfection, but how every game is super-duper important, that's been lost a bit. Because you go back, obviously the Ohio State-Oregon loss, it is what it is. Great teams lose to other really great teams. That happens. Losing to a 6-5 Michigan team at home should absolutely doom your playoff hopes. Like, in the past, it has. Ohio State finished 4th in the Big Ten this year because of that. So, I mean, here they are in the national title, and I get it. And you look at the other side of the football. Indiana or Notre Dame has perhaps the most embarrassing loss of the college football season.
Yeah.
To an NIU team that I think didn't go 500 this year. Like, they were a bad mid-major program. It's not even like it was a bad SEC team.
5th in the Mountain West or something like that.
Yeah, just a
MAC.
bad football team. And yet these two teams are in the national title. So it kind of proves to me that what a lot of us were afraid of is that the regular season doesn't really matter as much.
I think that's when we expand the field. I think that was an obvious something we kind of knew was going to happen. I think even the take when they expanded was like, oh, now the regular season doesn't matter. And so that's a warranted criticism considering, like I said, like you just said, we have a Northern Illinois loss and we have a 6-5 Michigan loss at home playing for a national title. That's what we got going on. And any year prior to this, those two teams are not playing for a national title. That is 100% correct. But I think the lesson that I've learned and we should take from this is the fact that it's important to do this right here. You got to peak late while surviving early. That's all that matters. If you're playing your best football towards the end of the year and while you're working up to that crescendo, you survive enough of the bad ones, right? Yeah, you can lose to Michigan at home, but you damn sure got to survive Indiana with a couple of special teams plays. You got to get past Nebraska when you don't play well at home for Ohio State, right? You got to handle all your other business for Notre Dame when you're giving up 35 points on the road to USC because you're starting nose tackles out, right? You have to survive these other things while peaking towards the end of the year, because I think there's no doubt when we look at what Notre Dame's doing right now and we look at what Ohio State's doing right now, we can come down to this unanimous agreement that both of them are playing their best football of the year right now.
I think that what this season too has shown is that you can't really overreact about things like you used to in the past. Like when Notre Dame loses to Northern Illinois.
You can't come on here and say that they're cheated on their wife on Cheaters and took a shit in the living room and they don't get to come.
Yeah, it's like you can no longer say Notre Dame cannot win a national title anymore after the NIU game, because in years prior they wouldn't, because they likely weren't even going to have a shot at it anymore. Whereas this year they have chances for redemption. Ohio State, if they would have lost to Michigan like this last year, You could have overreacted about Ohio State, said this was the biggest waste of money. Ryan Day can't do it. All those things, and they go into a New Year's Six bowl probably, but it's not the college football playoff. So you
beat Mizzou 10-3.
Exactly. So it's those types like you can't overreact.
Boston.
Like SEC fans got caught in this as well. Of this is by far the best conference. Look how everybody's beating one another. Georgia looks like the best team. Texas looks like the best team. Bama looks like the best team. Ole Miss looks like the best team. They would beat anybody of these Big Ten teams. And then you go in the playoff. They lay duds. They don't even make it to the national title game. So you can't overreact like you used to because there's plenty of opportunities for these really good teams to redeem themselves.
And to your point, like it's an overreaction now, absolutely, because there's obviously a lot of football left, a lot of season left, and as long as you make it to the dance, anyone really has a chance. But these weren't overreactions 5 years ago, 10 years ago when we had a 14 playoff method. Like the NIU loss was so monumental because it meant that you were not going to the playoff. Yeah. Losing to Michigan in the last week of the regular season when you're a one-loss team barely hanging on to conference championship hopes meant your season was over. So it's an overreaction now because we look back and say, well, none of that really mattered anymore because here these two teams are in the playoff or here these two teams are in the national championship. But they're overreactions now because the field got expanded, and they're overreactions because the regular season doesn't mean as much. So I think we're all kind of giving the same take here.
Speaking of overreactions, let's overreact before the outcome even comes out. We have these two teams, Ohio State and Notre Dame, set to play for a national title to be the 11th college football playoff championship winner. All right, this is the 11th season of this, starting back in 2014, first champion Ohio State. So what I thought would be fun, what we thought would be fun, rather, is ranking these teams in a vacuum, okay? So where would you put Ohio State and Notre Dame, assuming, in this mythical situation, both of them win a title? Where would you rank them in the top echelon of these national title winners? I'll go first. I have LSU 2019 ranked number 1, 2020 Alabama ranked number 2, 2021 Georgia ranked number 3, 2014 or number 4 2018 Clemson, and then number 5, the highest ranking of any of these two teams, I have 2024 Ohio State right here, number 5. If you played them on a neutral field, mythically match them up, I think Ohio State comes in number 5. The problem for me is picking Notre Dame against any of these previous champions, not named Michigan, because I think in a matchup against Michigan, there's a way where Notre Dame's winning a 17-14 football game against last year's Michigan football team. But other than that, I don't know if this Notre Dame team were to win a title, I don't know where I would rank them on the national title winners. And that sounds goofy because I just ranked the team that hypothetically they'd beat 5th.
And it's funny because it would be one of the more impressive national title wins, like for Marcus Freeman to win a national title with this roster. It would be very impressive, and it would be recognized as such. But ranking them against previous national title winners, it wouldn't be that impressive. Like, especially when you look at like the raw talent on these rosters. Like, my top 5 is pretty much identical to yours, except I have Georgia 2021 at 2, 2020 Bama at number 3. I think that's 2A, 2B. I think you could easily flip-flop it. The only reason why I have Georgia 2021 at number 2 is because hindsight just continues to grow for that roster, and it continues to be, God, you probably don't ever see that ever again.
Yeah, I went LSU obviously is the number 1, Clemson 2018 at the 2 spot, Alabama at the 2020 Alabama at 3, and then the 2 Georgia teams at 4 and 5. But I'm having a really hard time ranking either of these national champions inside the top 7 or 8.
Yeah.
And here's why. And as great as Ohio State's playing right now, and we look at the teams holistically, this is an Ohio State team that 4 weeks ago lost to a Michigan team that was exponentially worse than the national championship team last year. And so, like, that's always playing in your head. Like, is Ohio State as good as this 3-game stretch they've been on, or are they just peaking at the right time like they said? If you put this Ohio State team up against, 2017 Alabama, are you going to see the same results? You'd assume so because they put almost a month's worth of tape on that, but it's again, like, I keep getting hung up on what this team has done throughout the season. Like, you can look down this list. Like, 2017 Alabama had a slip up. They lost to Kerryon Johnson. 2014 Ohio State week 1 lost to Virginia Tech. But I mean, they righted all those ships, and you can argue that Alabama or Ohio State righted that ship recently, but it's still so clearly like so recent in the past of they still can put on a really, really bad football game.
You show me the film of the Tennessee game, and who did they beat the shit out of last round? The Oregon game. And I would think on film, on paper, I'd be like, all right, that team could beat just about anybody,
Correct.
not named 2019 LSU. what you're saying is holistically, they didn't play like that every single week.
Correct.
I don't think they played like that this past week.
No.
I don't think they executed like that at a high rate this past week, particularly on the offensive line. But Texas is damn good, as are the rest of these teams that we're hypothetically putting them against.
Absolutely. Like, you look at the top 5 here, like all 5 of those teams, with the exception of one, went undefeated. They had a couple of bad games. There were a couple of close calls. There were some games where it was like, you probably should have beaten that team by 20 points and you beat them by 3. But they found ways to win those games. This year's Ohio State team didn't do that. Now, I get it. It's all in the past. But holistically, those teams are much better than Ohio State.
These two teams making the national title almost made me kind of mad, just because it gives the college football playoff committee even more ammunition as to why we should expand to more teams, because as we've already mentioned, both of these teams had bad slip-ups, and so that even makes it even more of an argument of why 9-3 South Carolina needs to be added into this field, why Alabama needs to be added into the field and whatnot, because South Carolina had 3 slip-ups this year, but who says they couldn't have gone on a 4-game run like Ohio State or Notre Dame has and been in a national title game? So that's kind of what makes me mad that these two teams have made it, because these two teams are like the premier examples of you had bad slip-ups in the regular season, but yet here you are, the 2 best teams remaining.
Kirby, you had a team that needed vindication. Is this correct?
Yeah, so all season long, we've kind of joked and prodded at Indiana for being just an absolute fraud, an absolute shell.
Fraud.
Propped up by a really good record. As soon as they play a team with a pulse, they beat
nobody, Paul.
They're going to fold. They didn't beat anyone. And here we are, 1 game left in the regular season, and Indiana's only 2 losses are against the 2 teams that are playing in the national championship. And might I add, both of those losses came on the road. So it's kind of like you look around at what Kirk Cignetti said and everything like that. It's like, yeah, you lost those games and you lost them in somewhat embarrassing fashion. But the fact remains, like, if that's the case, like, you have an argument for, hey, we were a top 10 team this year. And if you're a top 10 team, you're absolutely deserved to be in the playoff. So this kind of narrative that, Indiana never even belonged here, get them out, this is ridiculous, Indiana's kind of been vindicated.
Have you ever heard of the term duff?
Yeah.
A designated ugly friend. Okay, so they lose to one of the national title contenders, Notre Dame, pretty ugly, as a designated ugly friend. And then they lose to Ohio State, like pretty handily. That ugly friend is rather robust. Another F in there that we're not allowed to say in 2024. That's DUFFF. So, yeah, they're like the 3rd prettiest girl who happens to be much, much uglier than the prettiest girl.
For sure. I don't think Indiana's out here capering like, hey, we should be in the national title, but I think their playoff spot is vindicated. I think everyone who came out here and said...
We'll go with that. I mean, shit, there wasn't 12 good teams this year, I don't think.
No. But everyone who said, Indiana absolutely did not deserve that, Alabama or South Carolina or someone else should have gotten that spot. Like, yeah, you can say what you want about Indiana about the games they lost, but the 2 teams that they lost to, the 2 teams they only lost to, were on the road, and it's 2 teams that are now playing in the national titles. So.
And it doesn't matter to you that they were beaten within the first quarter by both of those teams? That doesn't
I mean, Oregon lost
for you?
Oregon lost in the first quarter to Ohio State.
Fair.
And we said that was the number 1 team all year.
Fair. Golly, you got them all tonight.
The only thing I'm here, I think Indiana absolutely deserved a playoff spot now, especially now that the field is kind of settled. But what I'm not here for is the take that some people are delivering now of Indiana was better than some of the teams ahead of them as well. Like, they played closer than Georgia did against Notre Dame. That game was 24-3, right?
The transitive property. I love this.
Yeah, wasn't that game 24-3 with like 6 minutes left in the game or something like that? And then they score some points and they make it closer. Like, they got handled that day. That was an absolute dominating performance by Notre Dame. Indiana at no point in that game, especially after the big-time run from Jeremiah Love, like at that point on, nobody thought Indiana was winning that game.
I hate the transitive property. I've always hated it. And here's what really nailed it home for me. In 2017, I believe we won 0 conference games at Shorter University, won 2 out-of-conference games. And if you go onto that website of My Team is Better Than Your Team, the transitive property website, we were better than the national champion Alabama football team that year, according to that website. Because if you do enough of these, so-and-so beat such and such, who beat such and such, who one day played good against such and such, eventually you'll get to My Team's Better Than Your Team. So, yeah, keep going.
That's what got UCF a national championship.
Facts.
They were vindicated.
Facts. I mean, they put that bitch on the stadium.
Embarrassing. Anything else been vindicated?
It looks fire on NCAA 25, though.
Mm.
What?
Has there anything else been vindicated?
Oh, my God. You want to talk about vindication? You know what's been vindicated?
What's
my
that?
bank account. My bank account has been slap vindicated by our friends over at Rocket Money. And I know you're listening to this, you're like, what in the heck is Rocket Money? Ladies and gentlemen, Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Rocket Money has over 5 million users who have saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 per year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/gameon today. That's rocketmoney.com/gameon. rocketmoney.com/gameon. They incentivize us to read that 3 times to make sure you know it's rocketmoney.com/gameon. Nailed it.
Beautiful.
Absolutely nailed it. Good job right there, Curb. Who is the Arizona State of 2025? Now, I proposed this question to the chat, and I proposed this question to you guys because not only do we have an Arizona State of 2024, right? One of these football teams that was kind of riding the ship in 2023, ultimately to have a boom year in 2024 and make the college football playoff. But we have one of these the year prior as well. Texas was one of these teams in 2023 that in 2022 went 7-5 with 5 one-score losses. Figured it out. They were obviously riding the ship in year 2 under Sark. Year 3, they make a college football playoff. Year 4, they return to it again. All right, so who is the 2025 version of the 2024 Arizona State football team and the 2023 Texas Longhorns? Who is it?
So I think one of the things you have to take into consideration when you have this, and I think TCU is also a good example of this in 2022, of teams that like just, where the hell did this come from? It has to come from a conference that isn't usually super heavy and competitive. Like, I don't think a team like this is going to come out of the SEC. I don't think a team like this is going to come out of the Big Ten because the reality is you have to do well in your conference scheduling. I'm going to say it's the North Carolina Tar Heels.
Oh, yeah.
Because the ACC, as good as Clemson is, I have no idea what Miami's doing. I have no idea what
This
Florida
is
State's doing
2025
this year.
Indiana because I cheated. You read me the schedule. This is what this is.
Oh, yeah. Listen to this schedule.
I took the job
Now-
because of the schedule.
Now, these aren't in order, so the dates haven't all officially come out, but these are the 12 teams that they'll play. TCU, at Charlotte, Richmond, at UCF, at Cal, at NC State, Clemson, Duke, Stanford, Virginia, Syracuse, Wake Forest.
There's 2 preseason top 25 football teams in there. Clemson
Correct.
and maybe Syracuse.
Maybe Syracuse.
Maybe.
They could absolutely 9-3.
Hey, Kyle McCord's coming. No, he declared.
He declared.
Damn.
Declared. They could absolutely 9-3 their way to an ACC championship, just like the Clemson
9-3.
Tigers.
Belichick's winning 10 games on that schedule.
Hopefully,
If he's not coaching the
But I mean,
Cowboys.
I'm giving them.
That's a whole nother
This
thing.
is all. This is, by the way, this is all assuming Bill Belichick is the North
Facts.
Carolina head coach from the
Facts.
start of the year. But I mean, there's 9 wins on that schedule for them, and then some things shake your way. Next thing you know, North Carolina's in the ACC championship. All you have to do is beat a SMU or a Clemson, and it's 50-50 toss-up at that point. North Carolina could absolutely be one of these teams in the playoff.
I like your style. I got one for you. This is going to sound crazy. It's going to sound absolutely just insane, especially considering the schedule. But does Florida fit this category? Finished strong to end the season last year, a lot of momentum, but not most importantly, the most important factor of this and the idea that Florida might completely right the ship and make a run that nobody expects next year considering the schedule. They have tremendous quarterback play returning. We expect him to be great. There are reasons to believe and have optimism around this football team. And this is what I want to ask the chat. And this is going to sound, again, really, really crazy. But this is the nature of this conference right now in the SEC. Florida enters the 2025 season knowing good and damn well they should be a much better football team than they were in 2024. Everything is pointing up around that building, or at least everyone around the sport thinks that things are looking better because of the quarterback play for Florida and because of what happened towards the end of the season under Billy Napier down there. What SEC team feels like next year is going to be better than this year? Is it Texas? I don't think so.
No.
They lose about 20 guys to the NFL, including their quarterback. Yes, Arch Manning's great. Is it LSU? Does LSU feel great about this coming up year compared to where they were last year? It's certainly not Ole Miss. Lose your quarterback and every NFL talent on the defensive side of the football, not named Suntarian Perkins, right? Is it Georgia? Maybe. Maybe you feel great about the weapons you brought in. Maybe you feel good about how the offense might progress. But that's all projections and feels, right? It's not something you know they're going to be better entering next year. Does Tennessee feel this way? I don't necessarily feel Tennessee feels great about next year considering the loss of Squirrel White and the lack of additions in the transfer portal. We already talked about Texas. Why not Florida? Why not looking at the SEC next year and saying, well, Florida has a good reason to believe that they are going to be much better next year when the rest of the conference looks at it as we've got to be better.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you all the way up until you go, what's that schedule look like? And
that schedule's brutal.
It's like,
But that schedule was brutal in 2024.
Yeah.
Like, you look at that schedule in 2024 and you're like, shit, they got to close with Ole Miss. They got to close with Texas. And now you look at it like, they got to close with Ole Miss and they got to close with Texas.
Mm-hmm. Look, we all know that, like, schedules usually aren't as easy or as hard as they seem when they first come out. This is still not a great schedule.
No.
There's a 5-week stretch where you're at LSU, at Miami, off, Texas, at Texas A&M.
Oh, shit. They got Miami mid-season next year?
Yeah.
Even though it's Miami next year.
Then you close the season after your second bye week versus Georgia, at Kentucky, at Ole Miss, Tennessee, Florida State. Now, I mean, like, 8-4 is absolutely on the table for this team, especially with the way that Billy Napier closed out the year.
It better be.
9-3 could be on the table here. And at that point, are you a playoff team or are you not? So I could see it happening, and I think in a different world where the schedule wasn't this, I would absolutely agree with you. But I don't think that Florida is.
So Florida thinks they're going to be better this year. Schedule might inhibit them from doing that. Chat's already hit on the layup that I left you.
I was going to say that I think there's another SEC team. I think it is South Carolina.
Yeah. You went somewhere else?
I do think there's another SEC team that I maybe like a little bit better than those two options. I think Auburn could fit this role. I think that they could. I think that they had some young prospects.
We're nearing anti-Hugh Freeze deep state around here, though. So
that's a good thing for me then. I'm feeling even better about this take right now. Then I'm going to really hammer it home.
Dang,
right now.
dude.
But I think Auburn kind of fits this because they have some young prospects. I think that, and they're returning, obviously. And I think Hugh Freeze has done a great job on the recruiting trail. They found some quarterback prospects in the transfer portal. They're not playing Peyton Thorne anymore. And then I think the schedule is fairly in their. I think it's in their favor.
Doable.
I mean, it's Baylor, Ball State, South Alabama, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Georgia, Missouri, Arkansas, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, Mercer, and Alabama. Georgia, Alabama.
No.
It's not a bad schedule. And I think that it's another team, though, that also fits this mold of you should definitely feel like you're going to be better next year than you were this past year.
By God, he's put all the chips on this year.
Yeah.
He has pushed expectations down the road. It's time to start reaping some benefits.
But I think that those would be the three teams that I would really circle if we're looking at it in the SEC.
Not a bad list. Guys, now – I think Marcus Freeman's agent has kind of nipped this in the bud. I think it was the potential to get a new contract, maybe an additional raise, a salary bump up there at Notre Dame. But Marcus Freeman's name is getting linked to the Chicago Bears job. And now, because the Cowboys job has opened up, not only has Deion Sanders names been linked, but apparently they're going to call Sark. I've seen some people say that Dallas is going to call Sarkisian.
Yeah, and I mean, you're better in touch with the ins and outs of the agencies of this. How many times is it, anytime an NFL job opens, there's an obligatory call to Kirby Smart, Steve Sarkisian, Dan Lanning, all the top names in college. Just even though if they know the answer is probably hell no, they still do it just in case.
Yeah, so I think it's kind of your stamping in this sport of like you're one of the top 5 guys, and that perennial intrigue and interest will remain for the rest of the time that you're one of these guys. You know who was one of these guys and is no longer one of these guys?
Lincoln Riley.
No, well, yeah, but no, I'm thinking of a different name. No, and you'll never get here. Matt Campbell. Matt Campbell was one of these guys. Matt Campbell, the head coach of Iowa State, was supposed to be the next Dan Campbell up there with the Detroit Lions. Turned down apparently north of $6, $7, $8 million up there to be the head coach of Detroit to stay in Iowa State out there. So this happens, and you're in these conversations the rest of time until you put a hard stop, don't bother, which none of these guys ever will. Your agents won't do it for you because it does not behoove their interests. You need the more money. Chat's also hitting on a team like Nebraska. that, played a bunch of tight football games this year, heading into year 3 under Matt Rule. You know our deal about year 3 rules around here. Year 3 is the one where it normally pops for you. I don't hate Nebraska in that discussion of a team that could pop next year.
No, I don't hate that one at all. I think that's a good name to bring up.
Is that schedule brutal? Are you schedule checking?
Not bad at all.
The schedule check was a easy walkthrough this year. That's why they got to bowl eligibility by week 8.
Cincinnati, Akron, at HCU, Michigan State.
Hold on, HCU.
It's the Huskies. It's in Lincoln, Nebraska. I'd be shocked if you know what school this is.
Is that a heritage of sorts?
Probably.
Heritage, I don't know. What do you got? What is HCU?
It just says HCU Huskies.
We don't actually have a name?
I mean,
is that Hampton College University?
It's in
Something
Lincoln,
like that,
Nebraska.
probably.
Well, the game's going to be played in Lincoln, Nebraska, because it's a home game, not the school.
Right, I have no clue. If Jay Will wants to look it up,
Holy Cross.
It's not Holy Cross because it's blue.
Yeah.
Holy Cross is purple and white.
Either way.
Real brutal schedule is what we're getting at.
Yeah.
Michigan State, at Maryland, at Minnesota, Northwestern, USC, UCLA, Penn State, Iowa. So they have a pretty tough 4-game slate to close the schedule. But
I know you just read it off to me, but of the big 4, Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan, and Penn State, who did they draw?
Michigan and Penn State.
That's about as easy of a draw as you can get.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now I will
Houston
say
Christian.
the last 4 games of their schedule are USC at UCLA, bye week at Penn State, Iowa.
Yeah, but by then you're already a top 15 ranked football team, and Matt Rule's got an extension.
That's
Happy
true.
Trails.
That's true, but that might not be a playoff team.
Apparently,
That's why I think you have to
Shout out
be
to
to
Houston
be an ASU
Mix.
Cinderella mix.
apparently this just recently came out. This comes from Jordan Schultz. Cowboys owner Jerry Jones has spoken with Colorado head coach Deion Sanders about the team's head coaching vacancy, and discussions are expected to continue regarding the possibility of him becoming the next head coach.
Gone.
And Dallas, Coach Prime is considered a top candidate, though the Cowboys plan to interview other candidates.
He gone.
Man,
Oh no, you mean Shador's
what
not
does that
going to be
mean
a
for
Raider?
Julian? That's my first thought.
Say what?
What's that mean for Julian? That's my first thought.
Oh, you automatically get a free ride. You get a free transfer. He'll be Indiana just signed Mendoza, so maybe you go there.
Yeah, you don't mess with
Wait,
Mendoza.
no. His connection left Indiana. The quarterback analyst that was there took a job, I want to say, at UCLA.
It's a good thing you don't mess with Mendoza. You don't walk into that room and think you're Mendoza.
You don't walk into a room with Francisco Mendoza thinking you're going to win a job.
No, you don't.
You don't.
It's
Isn't
not
it
a possibility.
Mendoza?
Hey, it's Francisco Fernando. He don't look like it either way.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, he looks as much like a Fernando Mendoza as Bush Hardman looks like a Bush Hardman.
It's fair. That's
I'm
fair.
not taking shots at the way he looks. He just don't match his name.
That's completely fair.
Fair analysis.
Fair analysis.
But no, I back to this whole discussion that started. I hope Marcus Freeman doesn't take a job in the NFL, and I hope these up and coming college coaches that have kind of set themselves as, you know, the next generation of really top tier head coaches don't do that, because you need good coaches in college football. You need to not have the top guys getting sniped and poached from the NFL simply because it's bad for the sport. It's a bad look for the sport where the guys who are at the top say, I can't do this. I'm getting burnt out. I'm going to go take a cushy job in the NFL.
I mean, it wasn't like he was grinding the high school recruiting trail.
No. But, I mean, it's like I still think his responsibilities are far harder
more
than
vast right
what
now
you would have in the
college than it
NFL.
would be in pro.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. He also, I think his time, like in 20 years, is Deion still going to be, in 10 years, is Deion still going to be Deion to like 22-year-old pro football players?
No.
Like right now he walks in the league and everybody still grew up knowing that Deion Sanders was the greatest football player of all time. So the idea that he's going to attract players and his persona and his aura still matters. That's only going to carry weight in the NFL with those players for like another 10 years? Or is he one of these humans that it just carries forever?
No, I mean, I think it'll carry. I mean, we're at a point now where no one playing under Deion Sanders watched Deion Sanders play.
Correct.
Like, these kids were all born in the early 2000s. Like, Deion Sanders was past his prime at that point. So I don't think that necessarily is like – there are certain players that just, like, have the quote-unquote infinite aura. Like, Deion Sanders is one of these. Mike Tyson's one of these. Like, guys like that where it's like you have so much of it that it lasts you throughout your entire career. I'm sure Deion Sanders will always be a hot topic. Now, the coaching performance that he turns in will change whether or not he is a hot topic. But if he's consistently putting out things and consistently improving as a head coach, like, he'll always have that quote-unquote aura to him.
Zachariah Branch is bad, and you'd say so too if he wasn't going to your team. What's he done as a wide receiver? 800 yards, 3 touchdowns in 2 years. We're transitioning to our local hour, so I think it's a good opportunity to let you know that Ladd McConkey had 748 yards as a career high in one singular season at the University of Georgia and just broke an NFL record, and I think went for over 1,100 yards as a rookie.
Correct.
So, Brock Bowers never went for 1,000 yards at the University of Georgia. Just broke a very long-standing record for total yardage. It goes to just to say that stats and game logs and box scores don't ultimately define how good a football player is. We'll see in the local hour.
Welcome into Talk the Dog, the show where we find a bone to pick and a take to give. These are not hot takes. These is dog takes. Can I talk that dog?
What's up? You really like that?
Let's shut up and grind some tape.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back for another hour here on the Film Guy Network. Make sure you're hitting that thumbs up button, like, subscribe, and rate and review. And if you miss any portion of tonight's broadcast, it will be made readily available. However, wherever you get your podcasts, make sure you're checking us out there and leaving us a review. A lot of stuff to talk about here on the local hour, boys. Carson Beck officially signed to the University of Miami. That's Miami University, University of Miami, UM. University of Miami. The U. 2026 Big Board Quarterback Edition coming to you guys tonight, as you can see based on the title. Some more roster news and notes to handle for you guys on tonight's show. We're going to be buying some 2025 stock on the Georgia roster. Ladd and Brock finishing some insane years in the NFL. We'll talk a little bit about that and some other dogs that are having a good run in early years in the NFL. And top brother tandems. Really dug into our bag of offseason content tonight. This obviously a spinoff of the Branch brothers being signed to the University of Georgia, and obviously the Bell brothers being signed to the University of Georgia. So we got top brother poker tonight. That's what we're going to be playing. Hope you guys in the chat will join in on that action with us as well. Speaking of joining in on the action, make sure you're heading over to BetUS today if you're looking for a new book to close out the college football season. All right, head over there. Use the promo code YouTube150. You'll get 150% deposit match up to $2,000 in your first time deposit and 125% deposit match on your next 2 deposits. And yes, they do indeed have a live casino over there as well. So if you're a guy who likes to get in on some card action, head over to BetUS and use that promo code YouTube150. Boys, while you guys were gone, I guess you and I have talked about this news. I can't even remember who I've talked to news with.
You and I.
You and I at the watch party talked about this to start that show. Carson Beck officially transferring to Miami. Boys, what are your thoughts? Because I've got some myself.
I mean, this is kind of what we all expected.
Once he hit the portal.
Yeah, after the news of the unexpected happened, we were all like, all right, Miami's kind of the only place it's going to happen. And again, I think it was the right move for both sides, you know. I don't think Carson Beck would have been welcomed in or was welcomed back at UGA with open arms. I can't confirm that exactly, but it seems like the two parties were kind of ready to move on from one another, and I think Carson Beck needed that extra year in college simply because of the injury he suffered. Like, the reports are he's not going to be able to throw a football until June or late July or early July at least. So, I mean, like, having a guy go through your entire spring, your entire offseason, where someone else is going to be getting one's reps, like, it doesn't really make sense for him to come back, especially when the guy that's supposedly your one right now just played a game and a half as your starter.
Yeah.
Like, how it would be even much worse of an optic for that to happen, and you'll come back and lose that quarterback battle. I
will say this. You talked about, like, I don't think he gave Georgia the option to even come back there. I think it was, I got to come back to college. I'm going anywhere other than the University of Georgia. That's what it seemed like. There was no open lines of communication with Georgia about potentially coming back or what the price would be. Miami's offering this. Do you want a counter offer? There was none of that. It was, I'm coming back to college and I'm going somewhere other than Georgia. And I've kind of changed my tone on how people look. I don't think there's any room in this world for name calling or being an idiot on social media or saying anything really, really harsh. However, I do think there is room nowadays in the world of college football for fans to, quote, feel some type of way when stuff like this goes down. Here are the facts. Carson Beck spent 4 years waiting for his turn to be the starting quarterback at the University of Georgia, started for 2 and played really, really well. All right. And then gets hurt and decides he wants to play another year of college football anywhere other than Georgia. And that gives Georgia fans a reason to, again, feel some type of way about this guy as he goes and plays for another football program.
Yeah, I think that the way I put it is you should absolutely appreciate what he did during his time at Georgia. You should appreciate that he went against the curve and he waited and stuck around at Georgia and remained true to his initial commitment and waited to be the starting quarterback in a world where nobody was doing that at the quarterback position especially. You should appreciate him for those things, and you should appreciate him for only losing 3 games in his entire career at the University of Georgia. But, I mean, I understand, too, like, why you feel some type of way about the way things kind of ended and how the storyline is going to have, like, how the book closed on Carson Beck's time in Athens.
Especially if he has a Cam Ward-esque season down there in Miami.
Yeah. I wanna pose a question to you guys, and mainly you, Jay Will, because you did grow up a Georgia fan. For as much as the Georgia fan base can be validated in having to feel some type of way towards Carson Beck, is it not fair to say Carson Beck should feel some type of, and all Georgia quarterbacks should feel some type of way to the fan base? Because, I mean, look at it this way. Kirby Smart has had just 3 quarterbacks start 10 games or more at the university. I mean, that as long as he's been there, that's it. Those have been the 3 guys: Jake Fromm, Stetson Bennett, Carson Beck. All 3 of them, at least an 80% win percentage. All 3 of them had completions in a national championship game. All 3 of them started an SEC title game and won an SEC title game. Like, that is better resumes than 99% of the other Georgia quarterbacks that have played. The other thing they have in common, though, throughout their entire careers, they were heavily criticized. Like, we all read the things that people were saying about Carson Beck this year, and some of them were disgusting. Like, why, if I'm Carson Beck, why do I want to come back for a team that's been doing that? And I get it. And Carson Beck will probably be the first to tell you that this season, in general, my career did not go the way I thought it would. But you look at the fan base and the way that you're treated like that, like what's the incentive for me as a player to come back here?
You are hitting on some here are the facts, right? Jake Fromm stared down a 3rd to 5th round draft eval and was like, all right, whatever, I'll go. I'm not going back there. Stetson Bennett won 2 national titles, and you guys hated him all. Some of you guys hated him all the way out. Y'all bitched about the way he acted in the parade. Why did he act like that in the parade? I wonder why. And then the Carson thing. He just decides he wants to go elsewhere. So, and look, it is every fan base. Every fan base is ravenous. Every fan base gets after folks. I do think there's, at some point as a fan base, you kind of have to look yourself in the mirror. And it's not you guys that are here. It's the loud idiots on social media. I understand that. But there needs to be a conversation about, hey, we had 3 of our greatest quarterbacks of all time who left this place and didn't seem like they had a great time while they were here.
Correct. And maybe it's just the fact that I haven't been alive long enough to remember this, but people don't treat Matthew Stafford this way. Matthew Stafford has relatively nothing to show for during his Georgia career other than a number 1 overall pick, but the fan base loves him.
Say it.
I'm going to ask you this question.
Go ahead.
Name me the Georgia quarterback over the last 20 years who's still out here repping the G.
I got one.
There's one name.
DJ Shockley.
DJ Shockley. Okay, there's 2.
DJ Shockley.
Shock will do it. Jake Fromm will appear on a
Dog Nation every once in a
I'm
while.
not talking like
I'm
not talking like Instagram story, like, oh, they just beat Tennessee, like we're
I'm
gonna give him a
talking Lawrence
shout.
Cager quote tweeting, get this guy to Georgia, dog repping.
Yeah,
I think there's 2. I think it's DJ Shockley and Aaron Murray.
Yeah.
Those 2 guys still out here repping the G, talking some dog, pumping up Kirby Smart, pumping up this program, showing love to the fan base.
Chat's got a good one. I see David Green on the sidelines all the time.
Okay, yeah.
And he's
David
got
Green.
kids, and he's got his own
Right,
professional life, and he's out here doing that, not being a face out here repping the G, but he repping it.
And that's
correct.
not
And
to
to
say
my-
like Stetson Bennett doesn't still appreciate Georgia and still doesn't have love for that. I think he's obviously does. I think Stetson, he grew up a Georgia fan, dreamed of playing there. But Jake Fromm kind of similar in that role as well, of like, it just feels like there's not really like these, like as great as they are and as great as they will go down in Georgia history.
In Jake Fromm's one of Jake Fromm's last home games, he got booed off the field at halftime against Kentucky.
Yeah. And I mean, and I get it. Like, again, the David Greens and the DJ Shockleys of the world, I understand that those are like rose-tinted goggles. And like 20 years ago, there's a nostalgia feeling of seeing those guys come around. And again, maybe history will be kind. I mean, God knows people are already saying, "Oh, I miss Stetson Bennett so much."
Yeah, now.
But I think we're at an inflection point now where you've had 3 of your guys, your quarterbacks under Kirby Smart, all leave Georgia with kind of a. It seems like they don't want to be here, and Carson Beck damn sure just proved that. Like, as a fan base, I think Georgia fans need to start looking themselves in the eye and saying, what are we doing wrong that's driving away these quarterbacks? I'm not saying you can't be critical. I'm not saying you can't say that Carson Beck's 2024 season was a big disappointment. That's absolutely fair to say. But the way you go about criticizing these guys has clearly rubbed a bunch of them the wrong way.
Well, I think it's not even like drive them away, but how about you just be freaking appreciative of what the heck is in front of you and what you're watching? Because again, we just talked about the 3 names that Kirby Smart has had in his time and where they kind of sit in the Georgia history books and like whatnot. Like, just appreciate what you have, man. I mean, there's so many other college programs that don't have anywhere close to the caliber of quarterback play that Georgia has had over the last 8 years.
Look, and every time we have one of these segments where we feel like we're talking down to the fan base or correcting behavior from the fan base, most of the comments I get are, Brooks, stop listening to the loud ones on social media. Who do you think these kids are listening to?
Right.
Who do you think these kids see in their direct messages all the time? Who do you think Hannah Cavender was subtweeting about when she went on a 90-second TikTok rant about how her boyfriend's mental is in all shambles? So there is a portion of it that is doing it, and they probably need to stop. Because, again, there's no denying that Jake Fromm bypassed a year at Georgia for a 5th-round draft selection, and everyone stared it down and knew it was going to happen, right? There's no ifs, ands, or buts about the fact that Stetson left with what was obviously a bad taste in his mouth. There is no denying the fact that Carson Beck is coming back to college and choosing not to do so in Athens. Those are all true. Now, some of those could be related to maybe Jake Fromm didn't want to go through a coordinating change, right? With Coley to whoever the next guy was going to be. Maybe he didn't want to do that. Maybe some people will tell you Carson Beck didn't want to play another year under Kirby or Mike or whatever you want to do it. But there is a consistent pattern right here of people leaving this position, which is very important, and not necessarily feeling loved as they walked out, despite the fact that the stats say they were 3 of the best to ever do it at this school.
I do want to ask this question of what if he never gets hurt at halftime and he plays in
There are some people in the building thinking you're playing Monday night.
Well, sure, that's a possibility, but I'll put it this way. Say Carson Beck doesn't get hurt at halftime in the SEC championship game, and then say he puts up the same stat line that Gunnar Stockton did against Notre Dame, still lose, so you're eliminated. Does that change anything at all? I
think there's a portion of the fan base, if he decides to come back, that does the thing that they did to Stetson, where they're like, we don't want this guy back. Well, I've seen some of the main voices in this spot since this has happened have gone on social media and started talking about Carson Beck like he's some slapdick quarterback.
Yeah, it's pretty nasty.
It's pretty gross. And that's what happens when you leave, or even when you decide to come back in situations like that. They think you're passing up what could be better every time, it feels like. So I think the narrative about what Carson was as a football player at Georgia has certainly changed over the last 5 days. And again, like I said to start the segment, you have to understand that that's part of it nowadays. All right, used to I'd come on here and start talking about, hey, he's a 21-year-old kid, 23-year-old kid, give him a break. All right, well, he just signed a $5 million contract. Ain't no giving him breaks no more.
Right, and again, nothing wrong with being critical, especially when the numbers are out there and you're showing how much, your money. This isn't the league's money. This isn't team money.
This is fan money.
This is fan money that's going in it. There's nothing wrong with being critical. But the way that Georgia fans have gone about being critical of their quarterback's play has been ravenous and almost uncontrollable at certain points, where it's like, guys, this is getting out of hand. And the way that Georgia quarterbacks feel about the program, or likely do, reflects that, I think. And that's just something to take in consideration when you want to trash a Carson Beck or a Stetson Bennett or a Jake Fromm. That's all I want to say and all I want to point out to the fan base.
And good. I think it's a fair, not criticism, but a fair thing to talk about. Is just like, hey, maybe we can make life as a Georgia quarterback just slightly easier for the next one. All right. And it seems that likability plays a large portion of this, but once you go out and play poorly, all gloves are off. Because I think everyone loved the Stetson Bennett story until, he was throwing ugly interceptions and everyone thought he was the reason that you guys are struggling, and then you want to get rid of him because he's 5'11". Speaking of quarterbacks, big board.
Ooh.
If you're not already subscribed to patreon.com/Brooks Austin, and you're a Georgia fan, I don't really know what you are doing, okay? Over the next several days and weeks, I'm going to be unleashing not their full big board, but who the names you need to pay attention to. And we're going to do spits of that on this channel. We're going to give you some names to pay attention to and some names that I like. So some of these names that we're going to watch tonight at the quarterback position, I don't even know if Georgia's interested in. I sure as hell would be interested in based off the film that I'm going to show you tonight. So starting with the quarterback big board, there is no doubt about it. There is one name at the very top of it that has separated himself from a evaluation standpoint from the rest of the class, and that is Jared Curtis, the young man out of Nashville, Tennessee. He is exceptional. There are people in the building that think he is a talent akin to Matthew Stafford and is going to be potentially the next kind of guy. They're in a heavyweight battle for that one, as you would imagine, as he is the clear-cut #1 player in the country. Let's go to the board and rehash his sophomore tape. I think we've already watched it on this channel. Just to tell you how big of a quarterback prospect he is, he's no longer making cut-ups. So we're going to be watching sophomore tape. Unfortunately, we found this over the years on some of these 5-stars, guys. Once they kind of make it, if you will, and once they've got 4,500,000 offers from every school in the country, they just stop making cut-ups and they just, go throw for coaches at camps.
Wait, stop right there. You got to show the back off the jacket.
If they're even willing to do that.
Yeah.
That thing's clean, huh, boys?
Very nice.
That thing's clean. Where'd we buy this?
This
was Knoxville?
Knoxville.
This was Knoxville. We went into a mall up there in Knoxville and found a vintage store. So shout out to that place that I don't remember in Knoxville. Let's talk about this. All right, we're going to open with Jared Curtis. Again, this is their #1 guy on the board without a doubt, all right? And you'll see because of the arm talent and the just physical capabilities, look how high that ball gets up and out of the screen on the first deep ball of the game. This is a very much so one-of-one arm talent. What are you talking about?
They got a concave lens.
No, that was the press box in this tiny-ass high school hanging over. That's what that is. Yeah, that's the tent keeping the camera dry. That is the one thing you should know about Jared Curtis, and sometimes it doesn't matter. All right, sometimes these guys go from single-A high school football, walk right into college football, and they're immediately like dudes, okay? So take it with a grain of salt. This dude's playing like, we talk about Timmys and Tylers on this channel. This dude's playing nobody, all right? If he played a single Division I athlete this year, it was because they came down here and played Prince Avenue. Like that's it. All right, so you should know that when you start seeing him run around and run over people. That being said, big physical athlete. Like, he's 6'4", all right? He's 6'4", 220. He looks like he's 6'8" in this tape, all right? Especially this next clip. Look at him as he drops back and just look how much bigger than everybody else he is.
He's tucking the ball.
I was about to say, he got some swag.
Bro, no, there's no doubt about this dude. He's got it, all right? There are some people that think some quarterbacks at the University of Georgia walked around kind of like this and kind of like not knowing that they're good. This is a guy you're going to have to tell, hey, buddy, you're not quite yet him, while he thinks he is, all right? And I want that in guys. I want them to be able to test their limits and know that they're a dude. Also, when you see that, you know what we know? We know we got big mitts. All right, we know we got big paws on this dude. All right, but again, Timmys and Tylers, all right? So I do think he's like a 4.75 runner, 4.8 runner. He's a good, serviceable athlete, good enough to extend. I'm not designing explosive design run game for this guy.
No.
All right.
A question I'll ask you while these are playing: does the fact that you've had some
Jesus Christ?
I mean, that's a missile.
That ball is just ripped. What were you asking? Sorry, go ahead.
The fact that you've had some guys come into your room before that necessarily didn't play against tough competition, then they got to Athens and kind of struggled. Does that
you're referencing specifically Brock Vandegrift?
I wasn't going to say the name, but yeah.
Yeah, you're referencing specifically Brock. I think had Brock lit it up in 7A and come to SEC football, he still would have struggled with being able to read the full field, read the full field progression, stop going from number one's not open to now I'm going to scramble. He still would have done that at Grayson. He still would have done that at Buford. He would have rushed for 900 yards. He'd have thrown for 4,000 because no one was big enough, fast enough, strong enough to even run him down in high school. We get to college, that's a different level. It's a different scenario. So I do worry about that to an extent. The number one thing I would make these kids do, and I guarantee you Georgia does, we'd get them on the board and we'd learn really, really quickly how smooth that transition is going to be. Can you diagnose coverage? Can you write it up? Can you draw it up? Can you understand what's going on in these types of coverages? That will let me know how well you can actually read the field. There's no doubting or even talking about the arm talent. It's insane. It's very it's a little bit more natural flick, elite arm talent than this is Prince Avenue, by the way. And you can tell by just the difference in the type of athletes that are on the field and how much not so big he looks in this clip. By the way, if my memory serves me correct, as a sophomore, I think he threw 4 interceptions in this game against Prince. Again, not to do the all negatives about this guy. He's an immense talent. He's the number 1 quarterback in America. I just think it's fair for us to go through some of these questions about the prospect to behold. Okay, it's one of these arms that is insane. So that's the number 1 guy they're going after. Well, for good reasons. All right, let's go on to our next one. This is a guy high up on their board. I believe a lot of the industry thinks Ryder Lions right here out of California is going, I believe the projections are USC. Okay, I don't know how Hassan Longstreet changes that, especially if Hassan goes in there and starts year 1. So I think there's still some time to figure this one out. This player comparison for me is not a singular player. It's a position on a different sport. This dude plays the quarterback position like a catcher. All right, now, I'm a baseball guy through and through. I don't watch it nowadays because it's gotten a little bit more exciting, but, I'm ADD. Baseball's not for me. Watching it at least. But catchers, all right, catchers are always anywhere from 6 foot to 6'3". Joe Mauer's about the only one that's ever stretched this and become a Hall of Famer north of 6'5", big, long, tall. Most of those guys aren't. Most of those guys look far more like Pudge Rodriguez than they do Joe Mauer. They're 6 foot to 6'3", nice, tight, compact. If they're 205 pounds like my man Ryder Lions, they're 205 pounds from the forehead down to the ankles, meaning they're not thick up top or thick lowers. They're thick all the way throughout. They carry their body weight throughout their body. The really, really catcher prototype or, description for this guy is the throw motion. It's very quick and it's very from the ear. It's very in and out, and he's got immense life. All right, let's take a look at Ryder Lions, who I like a ton out of, I believe, Southern California. All right, but look at this motion. Look how quick and efficient, how much life he immediately brings to the football once he starts to rip it. And you'll see, man, like I'm saying, from the body type, once we get him from an end zone shot, you'll see just how thick this human is from tops to bottoms. Good deep ball. Throws it with good touch, 45 yards downfield. All right, playing with a 3-step. Oh, my God, how high did he put that ball up? Holy hell. All right, here you can see him. You see his body type? Just full-on athlete, top to down. No linear athlete, just a real thick, good athlete. You know who he reminds me of to an extent? Reminds me a little bit of Ryan Puglisi. Watch it, but he throws with better touch in high school than Ryan did. Ryan was a horsepower guy. This guy throws with a ton of touch. That ball getting up like that is insane. That face right there says it all. It's just like, he did what? The ability for that ball to get up. Dude, that's from the backside 48. That's from the backside 48.
Just went straight up.
It did.
Okay.
Yeah, no, this ain't happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we're chopping that one up. Yeah, some of these are like, all right.
This is a cool highlight, but this will never happen in college.
Double tapping. Now we're going to extend.
He doesn't seem elusive.
No. That's what I'm saying. Catcher athlete, not a shortstop. He's a catcher. I like it, though. I like the deep ball, man. Anybody that gets me arc on the football like that, man, you are very – oh, my God. What on earth?
Like a punt.
Jeez.
What is this dude doing? How do you get this much arc on the football, dude? And what's crazy, it's the pop. That's what it is. You see that the pop on it? All right, but what's really crazy about this, I don't see a heavy shoulder tilt on this either. We're getting this all out of the pop from the bottom half up through our right hip. Right there, boom, getting up off the ground. Both of those feet are on his toes. That ball is already going straight up. Me likey.
Yeah.
Me likey. You're right, Kirby. Not elusive.
Stout enough to be a guy like this in high school. But...
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's absurd. I want to see some rippers though. Can we get
Yeah.
Can we get one
There's
where
a
you're
lot
just
of-
putting it on a line?
There's a lot of deep balls here, but I've not seen a lot of middle field throws or.
All right, that one's seated.
It's a good throw.
It was. I want to see a clip of your feet in the ground. We're ripping a dig that you can put on a clothesline.
Yeah.
That's what I want to see.
Here comes one.
Nope, that's a corner route. All touch throws. Tremendous touch thrower is what we know about this young man. I don't like how he drops the ball, but he's got big mitts too. I could just see him in full gear blocking a slider, 0-2 slider, then getting up and throwing it to second base for an out.
He likes throwing on top of the numbers.
Yeah. All right. Everything touch on this guy is absurd. All right. We like that a lot. All right. Let's move on to our next guy. Now, this is a Brooksy eval. This has nothing to do with Georgia. If Georgia's called this guy, I don't know. If they haven't, I don't know. All right. I have known nothing about Georgia's connections to Javon Gilmore. However, I do know a connection. Gaffney High School class. Does anybody know who went to Gaffney High School? South Carolina. That'll give you a tip.
Not a clue.
Come on, boys.
Norris Sellers?
Nope. He's a Georgia player.
No clue then.
Come on.
I know the name. I'm blanking
Come
on it
on.
right now.
He's an acronym guy. Tyrion Ingram Dawkins was a Gaffney High School nose tackle and now plays defensive end for the University of Georgia. So there is a tie. There is a connection point between Javon Gilmore and this staff. Most people think he's going to Arkansas. This guy's 6'5", 210. And my definition of this football player is what we're going to call a stretch cutter. All right, and the reason I'm calling him a stretch cutter, of all the guys we're going to watch tonight, I think he cuts the football the best. He is constantly on the edge of it, and it comes out violent almost every single time, and he's stretched out. He's a stretch cutter of the football. Very, very Taylor Greeny without the athleticism right here.
He
Very
fits that
Taylor Greeny.
Arkansas QB mold right
Watch
now.
this throw right here.
Wow.
I like it a lot. I have no idea. If it ends up at Arkansas, that's awesome.
Go back.
I think that's him running down.
No, watch the ref eat shit.
Oh, no, I saw the ref eat shit when I watched it. Yeah. My man takes a tumble. Oh, shit. Oh, no.
I didn't see it that.
Hyperextension of the knee, sir. Oh, my Lord.
That boy got carded off.
Bro, he was.
Right.
That's some nasty
Golly.
work from the turf monster.
Nasty work. Had to be wet that night.
Man.
Rip up through, two hands on the football. Oh, my God. Buddy, that's on the run. Look at this, Kirby. This is from the backside 30. All right, he's going to throw it at the 35. And it's going to land at the 20. The kid can spin it, man.
He does a good job setting his feet even when he's on the move.
Yes, he
Just
does.
enough to, like, right there.
That's on a third and a zip code, by the way. Look at where the sticks were. Sorry, I moved back way too many. This is the mobile throw on the move. He does that really, really well to his right. This is the third, and it's got to be a zip code. Look at where the sticks are. It is. It's 3rd and 25 right here. And he rips that football. Good God. Whew. Y'all see why he's a my guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. There's some, and even that ball. Like, we're fading away. We're going to let that ball rip. I watched Drew Aller throw that shit in the dirt all week last week.
That was the Stetson Bennett Brock Bowers natty touchdown in 2021. Is exactly what that was.
Then we see a nice, quick, concise three-step hitter. I like that the stroke is not elongated for how long he is. It's nice and fluid and quick. I mean, that's with ease. Now, I think where he's getting nicked, I don't think he's a tremendous athlete. I think he's a good athlete, but I think he's more of a pro-style, extend the play type quarterback, whereas Taylor Green's, a 4-4 runner, it feels like. I like that tape a lot, the way he's ripping the football. Let's go to Jaden O'Neal. Now, Jaden O'Neal is what I'm calling spicy chicken and rice. Now, I've been talking about chicken and rice as an eval here for a long time. What is chicken and rice evals? Chicken and rice is the diet that my man Christian Kirby eats, and he is very svelte, doesn't have a ton of body weight on or body fat on him. Reason why? Chicken and rice. He's a very plain diet guy. Now, plain diet, eating like a dog, gonna keep you nice and fit and trim, but you don't like it. Nobody likes chicken and rice. Everybody dumps a bunch of sauce on it, but chicken and rice get the job done. That's what basic evals, low floor or high floor, low ceiling football players are for me. Now, the reason he's spicy chicken and rice, because you fitting to find out. He does everything at an A- level and makes it look really, really good. Watch my man, Jaden O'Neal right here. I think he's out of Oklahoma. All right, now I think he's committed to Oklahoma or will end up at Oklahoma, most people believe. But not as flashy as some of the other guys we're going to watch tonight, okay? Doesn't have some of the elite, like, special arm talent. For example, that ball slightly underthrown right there. But as these clips start to heat up, you'll start to see what I'm talking about. There is a very high floor here and some signs of a potentially high ceiling.
Very fundamentally sound in a 3-step drop.
Chicken and rice. Very fundamentally sound. Now you get to see some of this twitch. Yeah, we broke the tape up right here for Jaden O'Neal. I like this. I like this decision right here.
I like their unis.
Yeah, you like the green? I wasn't feeling it.
Black unis, green. Okay, well.
Yeah.
This ain't happening.
The throw will. Rolling left like that and flicking it across your body.
Adjust your hips.
Yeah, the running around stuff, probably not. That ball's hummed, son.
Oh, yeah. Again, and I would just love to see someone plant their feet and just throw a ripper over the middle.
Yeah, instead of leading like that.
I know it's more enticing to have these 45-yard bombs on your tape, and that shows off your arm strength and how you can hit a deep ball. But being able to throw over the middle is something that you're not going to be throwing 60
touch
yard
balls.
Yeah,
we're not throwing 2 balls over the middle.
No.
We're humming them things.
Not even that. You're not going to be throwing 60-yard goes 20 times a game. Like the majority of throws you're going to make have to be precise and lasers.
Just an okay athlete at his size. This throw right here, I was like, all right, you've got something.
That's a great throw.
You got some special arm talent.
Ooh, a little dead leg, okay.
And he's like 6'3", 215, Kirby. So he's not huge, but he's not small.
Mm-hmm. Now, is this a guy you said Georgia is on
yeah,
the
I mean,
board,
it's on the board.
Okay.
All right. All these guys are at some point on the board. I didn't give you the full board, either here or Patreon, to protect some.
Wait, here's accuracy.
Oh, we want to watch this?
Maybe.
I was going to go to the next one. We only got about 30 seconds left here anyways.
Okay.
Okay.
That's a great throw.
Ball could have been up a little higher.
I didn't really get a chance to see that when camera was.
Yeah, I think you could have ripped that one a little bit.
There we
That
go.
is
Now
a
that's
ball.
what we need to see.
That is a ball. Back shoulder.
A little
Floated on him a little bit, didn't it?
high. A little high.
Yeah. Well, it's a back shoulder. We want it high. But my concern was I want this ball like thrown with velocity. I don't want to see it arc down towards the end. That ball kind of did one of these. I want to see that ball go right to the back shoulder. The ball placement I'm happy with. I don't like the ball flight. Again, like if you were to take him and Ryan Montgomery and put them in the same class, you'd probably rate that guy slightly higher
Probably.
than Montgomery. So, yeah, spicy chicken and rice. I think Ryan Montgomery is the definition of chicken and rice at the quarterback position, okay? It just does everything right and doesn't do anything better than everybody else, does all the collective better than everybody else, okay? Now, this is my man Shamas Beal, all right? Now, Shamas Beal is labeled as the athletic baller, all right, in this class for me. This guy is like 5'11", 190 pounds, doesn't make wow throws at a consistent rate, doesn't have the world's biggest arm talent. You can see off the tape just watching it with no sound, no additional context. This dude's a competitor and he balls. All right, so let's take a look at my man Shamas Beal right here. Again, even the first clip, it's like, okay, great ball. But it wasn't like, whoa, you know what I mean?
Looked like he had to labor to get it there.
Correct. But you're going to see what I'm talking about with just standing in the pocket right there.
That's a great throw.
I mean, we got guys in our feet right here, and there's no fear about looking down at the rush. Look how convoluted that pocket is, and he delivers a strike. Okay? Another strike right here on a wheel.
Mm-hmm.
I think all of these guys nowadays are throwing those touch balls much better than they did in years prior.
Yeah, absolutely.
As that is a prime example of it. More rotational throwers nowadays, Kirby. I think that's why.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's with pressure in his face as well.
He's scorching them over the middle. Like these
Yeah.
are great balls.
I mean, he gets hit in the face right here upon releasing this football. Doink.
Do you feel like these deep ball throws are the most impressive ones to make? but from an athletic standpoint, they're necessarily the easiest.
I think what I want to look for.
Oh,
Yeah, he ran over that guy at the end. What I want to look for, Kirby, when I watch quarterbacks is, and high school highlight tapes are filled with this. Like Jackson Arnold was a 5-star a couple of classes ago. And if you turn his tape on, the very first clip, he takes his 3-step drop. The slant is covered. He immediately goes like this, puts feet to the parallel to the line of scrimmage, puts ball in one hand, and just starts running around like a chicken with his head cut off, and then makes a great throw at the end. He thinks it's a great play. But I see it as an evaluator, and I say, okay, well, the slant wasn't there, but if we came to read number 2, the hitch was there on our front side, and if we went to read number 3, the comeback, working 15 down to 12, was all open, but we didn't see primary one. When I see that stuff on tape, Kirby, I get a little bit more worried. When I see stuff over the middle like what this kid's doing where we're waiting in, protection is failing us, and we're standing in the heat of it and making throws, that's the stuff I want to see far more than Semaj spinning out of a dirty pocket, running right, and throwing a dart.
okay. I'm just wondering from a standpoint of like, it seems like the first clips that everyone's putting on these tapes are the deep touch balls, which are important, but no one's really ripping things over the middle. No one's really showing that they're progressing through reads. Like
as a guy who, this is the time of the year where I start throwing routes to high school kids, going out, never throwing for the last 6 months, I can throw a go ball tomorrow.
Exactly.
I can throw a go ball tomorrow. I throw it up in the air. I throw it as far as I can. I got enough arc. He's going to run under it no matter what. The hardest ball for me to throw is what you're talking about. A dig over the middle where I've got to throw it with good like velocity and he's running back into where I'm throwing to be able to lead him in the right spot. You are correct. Most of these vertical throws over the middle, easy. Most of these deep overs over the middle, when they're running away from you, a little bit more difficult. These hard breaking in routes, these digs, these hitches where we run back 15 down to 12 or curls, those are a little bit harder to throw, Kirby. Good call. Keep going with our Shamas Beal eval. Okay, he plays on time. That's the other thing I like about this guy. I don't see a lot of, oh shit, I'm late, now I got to ad-lib and be a great athlete. Just serviceable as a runner as well.
Bad defensive play. You got 2 pulling guards and you're reading the read option.
Good to see some of the athleticism right here. Serviceable. Good athlete, not wow athlete, right? Not what we saw from like a Hassan Longstreet, who's very similar physical traits to my man Semaj.
Can become a problem in the scramble.
100%. All right, so those are the guys that I kind of like right now. As the class starts to kick off, some in-state names that I know they're looking at, right? A guy like DJ Bordeaux at Douglas County just had a great year, and they're obviously watching DJ Bordeaux a lot because Aaron Gregory's there, Devin Carter is there, 2 wide receivers that have committed elsewhere, but they're still actively recruiting. DJ Bordeaux, a name to know here in the state. Another name to know, Brody McWhorter, because here's what we've known about what Georgia does at the quarterback position. They will swing for the biggest name that they like. They will go after Jared Curtis. If they don't land Jared Curtis, most of the time, if they miss their primary blue chipper, they'll start to go lotto ball system. They'll start to take as many guys as they possibly can to try to, hit the lottery on one of these quarterbacks that's overlooked and potentially a developmental play.
When's the last time that they kind of hit their guy where it's like, oh, this is the number 1 guy we wanted and we got him?
Gunner?
So that's 3
Gunner?
cycles ago?
Because they missed on Arch in 23. In 24, they liked Puglisi a lot, but it was Raiola.
And Zollers.
And Zollers is this class.
Oh.
That's 2025.
That's right. I forgot.
They like Zollers a lot in this class. Missed on him. They were recruiting Julian Lewis pretty heavily well. I wouldn't say missed on him. I think both parties agreed to go elsewhere.
Both parties lost interest in each other.
Yeah, for sure. They faded. You got to go back a couple classes from where their number 1 guy was going to be theirs. And by the way, Jared Curtis feels good. I think Georgia feels good. I don't think it feels safe about anything.
You're never safe in the quarterback room.
Not anymore, unfortunately.
There's last-minute offers every time around. Like, Dylan Raiola is a perfect example of this. Like, Dylan Raiola was your quarterback until it was like a week ahead of signing day. And I think he officially announced that he was signing with Nebraska on signing day. Yep. So you're never safe.
All right, so I enjoyed doing that. I hope you guys like that as well. We'll continue to do those as our big boards start to continue to get rolled out over on patreon.com/Brooks Austin. Far more detail in those actual notes and nugs that we're handing out over there. So make sure you're running over there and subscribing. Roster news and notes, guys. Since we've last been on air, Benjamin Jurasic has declared for the NFL Draft. Kieran Ingram Dawkins has declared for the NFL Draft. We have gotten a return announcement from Dalen Everett. We are still waiting on official announcements from Trevor Etienne, Ernest Green, and Oscar Delp. I want to approach this conversation, guys, as if those three names are indeed returning, because what I have known about this time of the year to be true, if we haven't heard that you're going to the NFL Draft by now, odds are you're probably not going to the NFL Draft. So I assume that those three football players are returning to Athens next year.
Those would be three big returnees, in my opinion. Especially like Oscar Delp would be another solid name to add back into the tight end room. I mean, you're going to be loaded next year, as you have been at the tight end position for the last 4 years. It feels like 5 years probably, even to go that far back. So that would be another big one. Trevor Etienne also. It feels like a guy that if he had a good year with Georgia. I think he certainly upped his stock, in my opinion. But it also feels like he could still grow even more. Like he could have even had an even better year. So I think that if he came back, that would be certainly a good depth piece, because as you've learned with Georgia and really just football in general over the last few years, is running back position gets thin very, very quickly. So having a guy like him back,
a couple of things to note here. Ernest Green hasn't posted on social media, Instagram or Twitter, since I think 2022. So if you're waiting around for some Instagram edit, I don't think you're getting it from that guy. I've got it on firm authority that Trevor Etienne is indeed returning. If you're waiting on a tweet, I don't know. Go get some sources.
Yeah.
And then our other name, Oscar. I don't know if we're ever going to get a tweet out of that one.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, it's safe to say that it feels like most every one of the players on offense who's eligible to return kind of left some meat on the bone as far as their careers go. They could absolutely increase their draft stock some more. I think that's why you're seeing a lot come back. And you have some other examples of guys where it's like, the NFL draft probably isn't going to be where they shine. Come back for another year, get a nice NIL check, and see if you could increase your draft stock more and go for another national title. So it makes sense as to why a lot of these guys are coming. I don't think there's anyone on this, at least the offensive side, where it's like, oh, you've got a day 1, day 2 eval. Why are you staying? Why are you coming back?
What were you arguing about in the chat?
Someone said that Fromm was told to leave after his third year. I was like, I don't think that's the case, because considering they
were just itching to play DeJuan Mathis.
I was to say, considering they went to the portal to find their guy for that year,
they were taking stabs everywhere.
Yeah. I don't think you sacrificed 2 years of Justin Fields to have one more year of Jake Fromm. I think they were fully anticipating Jake Fromm being a 4-year guy there.
Yeah,
so
that's a fair point. Which of these returns is the most important? Actually, before we even do that, I want to talk about something. Okay, because every time one of these draft eligible football players decides that they want to come back, if God forbid they're at a position where Georgia's got talent behind them, everyone wants to run to Twitter and worry about, what if Dalen Everett coming back to the University of Georgia cost us Ellis Robinson in the transfer portal? Or insert DeMello Jones, insert Daniel Harris, insert whoever you think in your mind of minds may one day potentially be better than what Dalen Everett already is. To those people that do the what if Dalen cost us X player, I ask you, what if Dalen Everett comes back to Georgia next year and is one of the main reasons, if not the sole reason, that you beat Texas twice? That'd be pretty nice, huh? You'd take that, wouldn't you? You'd sign right up for it. But, what could be, what might be, grass greener, what you have right now is a third-round draft pick who's decided to come back to Georgia. That's what you have.
Plus, name me the last Georgia defensive back that started multiple years and ever got worse over his career.
It's a great point.
Dalen Everett had a good year, a really good year this past year. What if you told yourself that he could be even better than that next year? You get that starter back on your defense next year in a secondary where you're about to lose Malachi Starks. I think you would take a veteran guy like Dalen Everett back every single day of the freaking week.
The only issue, and it's not an issue at all, because win now, win when you can. I think you do at some point kind of create a backstop of, okay, we're gonna get this year of this guy. But 2 years down the road, your depth's gonna be affected because of it, because the freshman that was sitting after the transfer that 2 years from now he'd still be on your team. That's the only issue I have with it. But when you can get a guy like Dalen Everett to play defense for you for another year, you absolutely take that. And I think Georgia plans accordingly when it comes to these types of things.
I mean, if you want to do the, like, Dalen cost you X such and such, just do Dalen Everett cost you A.J. Harris. Dalen Everett cost you Jalen Kimber.
Exactly.
Dalen Everett cost you these players who didn't think they were going to beat him out, saw what was coming in, and decided to leave. I don't think Ellis Robinson's going to fit into that equation. By the way, it seems like everybody's worried about Ellis leaving except for Ellis and Ellis's people, because everything I hear from Ellis Robinson's camp is that they understand the process and they're happy with what they got going on. So when these discussions come up, I'm like, y'all are worrying about stuff that they ain't even worried about, which happens all the time this time of the year. Everybody wants to quit for these kids before most of these kids even want to quit. That's what's crazy nowadays. But back to the question, which one of those returning guys is like the most important?
It feels like Dalen right now.
Yeah.
I take it back. Christian Miller. Christian Miller is the biggest one, in my opinion, coming back this year. The way how good of football Christian Miller played from week 1 all the way to the very end of the season. I mean, you have a hard time finding anybody that played as consistent as Christian Miller did this year on both sides of the football. So getting him back when you're losing Nas Stackhouse and you're losing Warren Brinson and you're losing TID, having Christian Miller come back next season, that's a big deal for that defensive front.
He was definitely your most pleasant surprise, I would say. I would say Trevor Etienne is probably a big one as well, simply because of the fact that we've seen in the last 2 years, you can never have enough depth at the running back position. Just as even if you're like, dang, there's like 6 guys.
We got too many.
Yeah, well, there's 6 guys in this room. Like very quickly throughout the season, you go, oh, wait a minute. 4 of those 6 guys are injured. One of them hasn't touched the ball an entire year. It's like so you definitely need depth. And I think now, again, Georgia has that 1-2 punch that they've always needed. They had it last year, but for the most part, it seemed like it was either Trevor Etienne or Nate Frazier. Like there was very little 1 and 2 of those 2 guys, simply because one was hurt or one was not playing. So I think it's going to be very big to have a Trevor Etienne, Nate Frazier 1-2 punch for Georgia.
Facts. All right, let's get into our 2025 stock exchange.
I love it.
All right, so I want players that you either think have low stocks or stocks that need to be bought that you're going all in on. I'll start with my top 5 with an OLI. OLI number 1, Noah Thomas. All right. I think I'm buying some Noah Thomas stock. I think I'm buying the fact that Georgia might have a first true X since George Pickens' 10 games as a participant at the University of Georgia over 3 years. Oscar Delp is an obvious buy low, sell high type football player. I think everybody had high aspirations for him in his first year without Brock Bowers. Didn't quite live up to what we thought he was going to be. I'm buying some stock right now while the price is low. Here's the...
You got it.
Here's where I'm really diving in on some stock. I'm pulling out mortgage loans. I'm doing everything to get extra cash assets on me to dump on these Georgia Bulldogs. Number 5, Gabe Harris. All right, with the loss of Tyrann Ingram-Dawkins to the NFL draft, with my man Damon Wilson deciding he want to be a Buckeye, with all of that happening at the defensive end and outside linebacker jack position, I think it's a great time to buy Gabe Harris stock going into year 3 at the University of Georgia. Number 4, a football player that I am uber excited to watch play next year, just because I'm excited to see, A, how smart he is, B, just how much of a high-effort football player he is. Drew Bobo, bring your lunch pail. I'm buying stock. Number 3, y'all already mentioned him, Kristen Miller. Now, Kristen Miller could have an argument for number 1 on this list because I know what Kristen Miller did from his junior year to his senior year in high school. Okay, this guy went from a top 400 eval, let him go to USC, to a top 100 football player with elite level twitch and elite level high efforts and elite level flash plays as a top 100 player in the state of Georgia, a must-have for Georgia going from his junior year to his senior year. I expect a same type of pop potentially from junior to senior in his college ranks. Number 2, a football player that is, the stock couldn't be lower on a football player who 18 months ago the stock was infinitely higher. Zachariah Branch. I feel like Zachariah Branch comes to the University of Georgia and everybody's like, ooh, 800 total yards over 2 years, guy's a dud. You're wrong. You're wrong. I think you're wrong. I'm buying stock hoping that you're wrong. Number 1, Daniel Calhoun. All right, now I faded on Daniel Calhoun, and I'm sorry, Daniel. I'm sorry I faded on you towards the end of your high school career, but if you were talking to me to a man right now, you would understand why. put on a little bit too much weight our senior year. We took some steps back, all right, as a senior at Walden High School, coming from Centennial. You spend a year at the University of Georgia, you lose about 50 pounds. They move you into guard. Your time to shine coming up this year. I'm buying Daniel Calhoun stock. Not just as Daniel Calhoun is a serviceable starter. I think Daniel Calhoun has the ceiling to be a difference maker on the offensive line, and I'm betting on it.
I like that one.
What do you got, boys?
You want me to go or you want to go?
I got 3 names.
3? Trace?
3 names.
Trace Namos?
That's all I need. Trevor Etienne. I kind of hinted on this one, talking about him coming back, but I do feel like this is a stock that could only continue to rise next year, especially if you get some more consistent offensive line play. I think that Gunnar Stockton now being a factor in this offense as well, I think it could open things up for him, Nate Frazier, any of the running backs are going to be rotated in next year. Trevor Etienne's stock, in my opinion, is only going to rise. So he's my first one. Number 2, Jonel Aguero. I think that this is a defensive back, and this is how it seems to be the path
Note sniping
for Georgia defensive backs. That you start your first year, you play good. Maybe you aren't like in the headlines or anything like that. Maybe there's not a whole lot of chatter about you, but Jonel Aguero played good. I think he could play great next year. I think he gets another year under his belt of starting. He'll be one of these focal point roles now that you have some clarity in the secondary. So I think that he could have a big year. And then I'm going to pick a freshman coming in, Elias Williams. I'm just going to go ahead and buy my stock now. I'm going to go ahead and get that firm.
If there's any left.
Well, I'm buying anything left that I possibly can just because he's a freak. That seems to be the type of freshman that get on the field at Georgia early.
I like it.
Good Namos.
I'm going to go same room, different player. I'm going to buy Jaden Riddell stock. I think he's probably next in line to get some touches on the tight end room. I think it's going to kind of be obviously you've got, if Oscar Delp comes back, it'll be him, Lawson Lucky. I think Jaden will kind of move into that third tight end spot.
My
could make some big plays.
warm-up player.
Jaden Riddell.
Favorite warm-up player.
Gorgeous.
Very good.
Every time
Built
I'm
in
on
a
the field, I'm
lab.
like, God.
You have no idea how big he is until you see him in person.
Massive.
You're like, holy shit. I tweeted out a photo of him, and I said, built in a lab. And people were like, what's so special about that? You're looking at a picture. That's why.
You'll see.
My God, he's huge.
All right, I've got 4 more on this one, so I'll try to go quick. Next I have on the list, C.J. Allen. Year 3 linebackers in a Kirby Smart program. Enough said. We all had super high expectations coming for him.
It better happen. You've been doing this. Hey, we gave it too early. It's a year 3 pop. It better pop.
Year 3 pop. It's coming. I'm buying the stock now. Just watch. Probably your number 3, Xavier McLeod. I think the Kristen Millers of the
Big
world,
Namo.
he played very well towards the end of the season.
He
I know he was
did.
battling some injuries throughout. Played very well in that Texas game. Played pretty well in the Notre Dame game. I think he's due for a step forward this year. And he's kind of one of these, not no-name guys, but all the attention seems to be going to Kristen Miller. My number 2 guy. And you can't get stock much lower than this, and I think he's due for a bounce back here. I'm buying Dylan Bell stock.
Come on now.
Say whatever you want about him.
Good
we all
value.
know the type of player he can be. He definitely did not live up to that in 2024, but I'm getting the stock at the low
Bro
value.
just bought BP stock after the oil spill is what he just did.
Exactly. That's exactly what I did.
Just
And-
a massive oil spill. The biggest in the history. Buy that stock.
And my number 1 player I am buying stock in, this one might come as a surprise. Look, we know Gunnar Stockton has a type of play style that
Lunch pail.
lunch pail guy
Gritty.
isn't afraid to take a hit. We've seen that already in 1.5 games. We've also seen him already get knocked out of a game in 1.5 games. I'm not saying Gunnar Stockton's.
doing it?
I'm not saying
dude,
Gunnar
you're gonna set the-
Stockton's
you're
going
gonna
to
set the
suffer
chat ablaze.
some season-ending injury. I'm not saying Gunnar Stockton's going to get benched. But you are out of your mind if you don't think Ryan Puglisi is going to take meaningful snaps this year. I am buying the stock.
Bro just set us up for an offseason of turbulence.
Bring it, dude.
I think you definitely should buy Dylan Bell stock because of this, in my opinion. If you finally get the X receiver this year, and if it is Thomas from
yes.
Texas A&M, and you can get Dylan Bell out of the X receiver spot and let him kind of be the type of wide receiver that I think he should be, I think he could have a great year. Also, if he catches the ball.
Huh?
That
Also, if he catches the ball.
that is a major caveat.
Whew.
But also, like to your point, though, if Dylan Bell's going to be utilized more in this Z position, the quote Debo Samuel of the Georgia offense, he's not going to be having to catch these deep balls.
No, yeah.
I don't think deep balls and one-on-ones were ever what Dylan Bell needed to do, and he kind of got wedged into that spot this year just because of everything that did happen at your X position.
And he's got his little brother. So, you know?
Got fam.
Transition. Best brothers in the history of Georgia football.
I didn't realize how many there were on this pick.
I know, right? So here's how we're going to play this. I've got what I believe to be pocket aces in this game of Texas Hold'em. I think I've got two brothers who not only have won national titles, but they brought a level of Georgia football, or brought Georgia football to a different level. My pocket aces, all right, now it's really one high ace and one kind of like tag along ace, is Stetson Bennett and Luke Bennett. Ooh. The pair of Bennett brothers, pair of aces who can beat me.
That is a good pair. I'll give you a good solid pair.
We got a national
Yeah, you will, Jay.
We got a national champion over here and a guy who had a uniform.
He put up
Wow.
He has stats. He has stats.
Wow.
A guy who had a uniform.
He has stats.
He has stats.
So it's not just a uniform.
If you
You ain't got to be heavy-handed. I thought I smoothed that one over pretty damn good.
you smoothed it over very well.
Who's beating my pocket aces of a national championship and a uniform wearer?
Oscar and Topher Delp.
Ooh. That's a good one.
Why do you laugh?
I mean, at least Stetson was the best quarterback on those national championship rosters.
All right.
I think you got a pair of 10s over there.
Okay.
I think I like my pair of aces. What do you got for me?
How about an NFL Hall of Famer and a guy who made some incredible plays for you, blocking field goals, Champ and Boss Bailey?
Didn't Champ have a brother that was a wide receiver as well?
I believe he did. But I know that Champ and Boss are the two like icon. Also, fantastic names. They might not be like their birth-given names, but they were cooking with the nicknames.
I do believe Boss still to this day has the highest ever recorded vertical jump at Georgia, and I think it was 43 inches.
Good God.
Yeah. I like it. We'll hold that. I think you got pocket aces as well with the Bailey brothers.
Another good duo to call for that I don't think any of us called the Ogletree brothers.
That's a good one.
Alec and Zach.
Oh my God. You talking about one of the worst takes ever. I'm glad Twitter wasn't invented during this time. So I went and watched the playoff game. I think I've told this story on air before.
You have, yeah.
Yeah. I thought Xander was going to be really good. I also love the idea of wanting to name your son Alexander and then having twin boys and naming the first one Alec and the second one Xander. That's some type of originality that just ain't going to be seen again.
Respect, honestly.
Respect. Hella respect. Because we have a backup fullback and a guy who averaged 9 wins during his University of Georgia career in Alec, despite the great NFL career, I'm going to go with my pair of aces there.
What about
Can I bend the rules a little bit?
Yeah, come on.
Mike Bobo and Drew Bobo.
Ooh, little father-son trio.
I mean, this is
They weren't
Georgia
even on the
lineage
team
to a
this
T. I mean, you got it all right here. You got two guys that played at the University of Georgia, one that has had multiple stints at the University of Georgia, a long UGA lineage right here.
I'm going to go a different route. I'm going to go Will Muschamp, Jackson Muschamp. Okay, because at
If
least
we're going
the Muschamp,
Discord rules, you just won.
At least the Muschamp boys got a ring.
all right, if we're betting rules, how about just go the Lucky Brothers?
Well, so you got a 3-headed monster here. That's the triplets that played with Kirby Smart.
Mm-hmm.
And we need house rules here because I know we're playing Texas Hold'em. And a pair of aces would be beaten by a 3 of a kind. But what if your 3 of a kind's like 3 2s?
I still think 3 of a kind wins. I don't play much poker. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know the rules here, but I think 3 of a kind wins. Does it not?
Yes.
Did we ever find out if Champ had another brother that was a wide receiver? Sean Bailey. Those are the triplets. Give me those 3.
He was he torched LSU in the 2005.
And I was there in the nosebleeds. Not a fan. Just an observer of the football game. I was in neutral colors back in 2003. That was 2004.
I was 5.
I wouldn't know. I wasn't a fan.
2005.
See what I did there?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Any other ones? The Stinchcombs getting a shout.
That's not a bad one.
Solid.
I mean, obviously,
Solid.
obviously they haven't really done much yet, but the Branch Brothers and Bell Brothers are there.
I don't think they're going to be making the cut.
Mm-hmm. You never know, man.
You never know.
Could be a great story.
I think the Stinchcombs might have us.
The Stinchcombs are a great one.
Yeah.
How did we forget
What was
those?
crazy was that Matt John was the far better college player and Matt was the far better pro player.
Correct.
Wasn't that wild about those two guys?
Yeah.
Interesting. Boy, Ladd and Brock had a good year, didn't they?
They had a great year.
You know, watching Ladd and Brock, and I know this is a crazy statement, but watching Ladd and Brock do what they did this year makes me really understand why they led the nation in third down conversion rate last year. The obvious passing down.
Because you said they would?
Well, that too, but far more to do with the fact that they had two, record-breaking NFL rookies on their roster at like 75% most of the year.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah, didn't even get him for the full season.
No. Who is that guy who left Georgia to play with his brother?
I have no
Good
idea.
question.
The one I can think of is the tight end, Luke. Was it Luke
Ford?
No,
Oh, that was for a
Luke
different
Ford
that was
grandma.
for his grandpa.
That's
Yeah.
because of grandma. He could be talking about Mr. Lost a Pinky.
Oh, Cade Mays.
Yeah,
Mays brothers?
because they wouldn't take Cooper.
Mr. Lost a
Mr.
Pinky.
Lost a Pinky.
Them foldable chairs will get you.
No
I
doubt.
think I saw the
They
best.
ain't to be played with.
I think I saw the best meme. I'm not gonna say it on air, but I'll tell you after we go off.
Love that. Love that.
Good way to close.
Love you guys as well. We'll be here tomorrow. We have another film study coming up, Ohio State versus Texas. Make sure you're sticking around for that. We will be live tomorrow night as well here at 8 o'clock. Appreciate you. Love you. Bye.